votes, while Susan Waititu followed with 4,892 votes. Elsewhere in Halai ward, UDA candidate Francis Muraya was declared the winner. Francis got 4,303 votes, followed by Jubilee's Peter Gibinji, who got 3,143 votes. Deputy President William Ruto celebrated the win of the UDA candidates. 2 KDF soldiers have been killed and 3 others injured after their patrol vehicle ran over an improvised explosive at Baure, Lamu East. KDF Public Relations Officer Zipporah Kioko says the wounded had been transported to a military hospital in Nairobi, while more officers were dispatched to the scene for a search operation. It's alleged that the bomb struck shortly after noon in front of a group of Al-Shabaab terrorists hiding in Boni Forest. The case comes just days before the official launch of Lamu Port, which is expected to be led by President Uhuru Kenyatta. However, Lamu County Commissioner Irungu Masharia says security has been beefed up. Kenya Magistrates and Judges Association has called on government security agencies to ensure the safety of the 5 judges who made the BBI judgment on Thursday last week. This comes days after a 5-judge bench gave its judgment on the BBI petitions, which had been consolidated, rendering the process unconstitutional, null and void. Association Secretary General Derek Kuto says the Ministry of Interior should assure the judges of their safety, given the sensitive nature of their work and the people they might come across while dispensing justice. The National Assembly is today expected to discuss the report of the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee on the appointment of Martha Koome to fill the post of Chief Justice. National Assembly Speaker Justin Muturi gazetted the day to discuss the report, which was prepared following Koome's grilling by the committee on Thursday last week. Koome has 33 years of experience and is expected to fill the post, which was left vacant following the retirement of David Maraga. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
It's a Wednesday morning and let's see what the roads are looking like right now. It's building up coming from the Eastern Bypass in the direction of Mombasa Road this morning. And that's already started to be at a bumper-to-bumper situation in some parts. It looks like it's going to be a crazy morning already. All right, then trying to approach the Southern Bypass exit. Also, you're going to find a little bit of traffic, but it shouldn't be too bad then using the Southern Bypass to go out. We're hoping that Langata Road opens up today, but we're going to have to take a look-see. It's still dark out, but it seems that everybody is out with the darkness as well. All right, coming off of Thika Road into the CBD, looks like it's slow as well. Coming off of Kiambu Road, then getting towards the Pangani underpass as you approach Muthaiga Square. It'll take some time. So we're starting off a little bit of traffic here and there. Hopefully it doesn't get too bad, but it does look like it's going to pick up quite some. Let's keep in touch and see how it does just that. SpiceFM KE on Twitter, that's how you can reach us, or text on 40127. See how we can keep things moving this morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric.
Habari yenu nyinyi wote. Muko salam. Welcome to the Situation Room this Wednesday, 19th day of May 2021. It's another lovely day for us to have some engaging conversations on everything that's happening around us, in the world, in the country, at our homes, even. Nduoko,
Yes.
how are you?
Fine, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
You doing well?
Yes, I am.
Super.
You maintain the glow.
Did I? Okay.
Yeah, must have come from a good source. Long lasting.
All right.
City.
Good morning, Eric.
Good morning.
Morning, Do.
Good morning, CT.
Yes.
Okay. We've taken that pose. The
Yes.
silver fox has landed.
We preface every conversation. in
Yes
this country
means
with the
I'm
word
open
yes.
for more questions.
Yes, that is it. Yes.
How are you?
Well, I'm actually quite well, thank you.
That's good.
Well, thank you for asking. Yes, Eric.
Yes.
It's an answer and an invitation all together.
Yes.
We are the only country in the world that have given life to the word yes. Okay? Yes,
Yes.
a quizzing. Yes, a greeting. Yes, a response to a greeting. And yes, when I actually don't agree with you.
Yes. See? It's like that other one of thank you.
Thank you.
When you make a
Not
point that I wanted to make.
appreciating me.
Thank you.
Thank you. There you go.
You read my mind.
Yeah, you read my mind.
Okay.
Our contribution to the evolution of the language.
Yes.
Indeed.
Welcome to the show. So, the by-elections took place yesterday. Voting was peaceful. In fact, it was so peaceful, it was almost empty.
There were some who were itching for a little bit of violence.
No.
Some drama.
Like, turnout. Psh. Anyway, people cast their ballots, people went back home.
And then,
And then the politicians came together, all political elements at one place called a tallying center. And we've been seeing what's happening. So in Bonchari, things went well. In Rurie, in Nyandarua County, things were going well. In Juja,
Kime?
it beat each other. My friend. So the IEBC had to suspend vote tallying for some time because of what the IEBC says was disruption of the exercise by somebody who is called His Excellency and other people. The area governor is said by the IEBC to have walked into this place demanding one or two things here and there. And therefore the IEBC said, you know what, provision of security is not our mandate, so what we're going to do is we are going to halt this exercise to secure everything else, to secure our officers, secure the ballots, as the security agencies do their thing. So some of this drama happened yesterday. We'll be talking about that even as we look at the newspaper headlines. We'll also have a conversation today about a launch of an East African agribusiness buyer-seller platform. What do you understand by that?
A platform upon which people can buy and sell agricultural products and services.
So
N'est-ce pas?
this is what?
when I hear the word platform, yes.
E-commerce.
Yes, what
For
comes
commodities.
to mind is digitalization.
You're asking
Meaning, the business of agriculture has gone online.
You're now buying vitungus online.
You can buy it
And
online.
you can sell your vitungus
Just
online.
like you can register things on e-citizen.
Yes.
You can also buy onions.
Online.
Yes.
Okay.
And you can transact your business online.
Okay.
Yes.
So what happens to Marikiti?
They're still
Or it
there.
becomes an aggregation spot?
There's some people who have not
Marikiti
embraced
is
the
never
online.
really going to go away because this e-exercise that you're involved in is supposed to actually end up in you actually seeing something physical. And it has to be domiciled somewhere. Yes.
It may have an impact. Just like e-commerce has had an impact on retail outlets. In some sense. You see the amount of e-commerce transactions and deliveries that are happening just from an e-commerce platform. So it now moves into, instead of being a trading platform, you look at it as warehousing.
Yes. But what I wonder is, it's a valid point you make, but is it really harmful to that business? Is it something that perhaps the business doesn't require? Is it just a different way of doing business? And that those who are involved in business simply do not see anything untoward or anything negative?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's true.
Because, like, for instance, if you walk into any of these eateries that were known for takeaways, they have space for people to sit in,
Yeah.
I've often wondered, because there are times when I go to fuel and some of these eateries are at petrol stations. I don't see people sitting in. So I ventured to ask.
Uh-huh.
I said, this place, I don't see the traffic.
I don't
He said,
see
no.
people.
You don't see the traffic because people call in. He said, what you need to be looking at, the number of motorbikes that are parked out here. And I said, that's what these motorbikes do here. He said, people order
So it's
online.
deliveries.
And it's delivered.
So this place here, the petrol station, serves as a kitchen
Yes.
and a pickup point.
Yes. And the same people who would have come to sit still get whatever it is that they wanted.
Yeah.
Rather to sit and eat, not just sit. So I looked at it and I said, okay. Learning for me, learning.
So we'll have a conversation about this platform with the East Africa Community Principal Secretary, Dr. Kevin Desai, and also somebody from the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, Dr. Bimal Kantaria, who is an investor in the agribusiness for very many years in the country. So that conversation happening at 8 a.m. and we have more and more conversations. In the meantime, COVID-19 and what's happening in the country now around the world. So is India dropping from the news cycle?
Well, not really. I mean, there's still quite a lot that's coming out of India now. Of course, analysis done in terms of what went wrong with the vaccine, and the nightmare is still very much a reality for a lot of the population in India who are still looking. I mean, it sounds like a story that you'd, again, have covered for one day and then moved on. But it's a story that, is now new for a lot more people for whom it was not the reality 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, is their reality today. And not being able to find spaces in hospitals, not being able to get an adequate supply of oxygen, it's still a problem. Though they have received quite some help from countries around the world, Russia, Saudi Arabia, other countries like this, they're still having a difficult time because we must take into consideration the large population that is resident in India. 25,500,000 cases of COVID-19 now in India. Looking at about, still, if you want to look at this comparatively, the death rate to 1 million in terms of population is 204. So it's still pretty low. If you're just doing a comparative analysis between what's happening here and what has happened in other countries, whereby you're looking at deaths of 1,807 in the US, 2,054 in Brazil, 1,652 in France, 2,062 in Italy, for example, 2,000 in Peru, 1,902 in Poland. So the thought or the first assumption when you hear all these cases is that, yes, quite a number of people have died and are dying. However, if you look at the deaths per 1 million in terms of population, the rate is still pretty low.
Still low.
Yeah, and that's what we are looking at now. But
what is of concern is that column of the serious and critical cases.
Yeah, so here, serious and critical cases in India, 8,944. Active cases of 3 million.
Highest in the world.
Right. It is.
So it tells you that in terms of the severity of the infections, those who have it and those who have it, and there are very many people who have this serious or severe conditions of the COVID-19 infection, which is now what is alarming, because that ends up overwhelming the healthcare system, ends up overwhelming the entire supply chain for oxygen and everything else, and it overwhelms the system, basically.
It does. That is it. And that's what they were worried about, because now with the variant of COVID that they're dealing with currently, it makes people sicker quicker and more critically so. Now, the other variant, which they've not been able to quite put a name to, that then requires that they do things like organ removal, especially for the eyes, they don't even have a name for this one yet. And they've only found it in those who have tested positive for COVID. So, I mean, there's a lot going on here. And in terms of managing it, it's going to take a while. If we just look at what the numbers were yesterday for India, 267,174. It's a drop. I mean, it's a considerable drop. But then if you look at the death toll, 4,525 people died or were reported yesterday, right?
Yep.
speaking about reporting really quickly, let's look at what's coming in from the Ministry of Health for Kenya. 469 new cases in the country yesterday from a sample size of 6,244. That puts positivity rate for this sample at 7.5%. 8 deaths were recorded and 43 recoveries were made. People now who were allowed to go home. Still talking about vaccinations. Surprise, surprise. We're still not able to crack that 1 million mark yet in the country. So, I don't know. We'll see.
There are people who have received the second dose.
Of the AstraZeneca, n'est-ce pas?
Yes.
Yes. So, maybe sometime in the future, we'll crack 1 million. And then,
These numbers are
maybe
just...
when the next batch comes in, people will make a mad rush for it and everybody will get vaccinated.
Even as we talk about this, see, the need for the second vaccination and to let's start with the need to vaccinate as many people as we can. In fact, the need to vaccinate everyone and then to have them have the second vaccination. Or if we're talking about vaccines that you only need one vaccination, like the Johnson & Johnson one. The point is this. It is the one safeguard that we currently have and we know works. We are seeing, slowly but very surely, countries that have managed to do precisely this. We see them rolling back time and the citizens are getting back to what may have been considered life as normal. Okay? So, much as it's a matter that should be discussed and debated on, it is a crucial matter that the government also take as a priority. Because if we keep talking about the impact it's making on the economy, surely, should this not be a priority?
It should. And I think perhaps that's how the communication then needs to change. That, look, there's so many things that are dependent upon an open economy, for example. And, getting back to business, getting back to work, putting things back in place. And I think that with the science that we've been given right now, we'll be able to say, look, if we want to protect ourselves, one of the ways we can do this is by getting the vaccine, getting vaccinated. It will ensure that you're out there protected. And then you can be out there doing whatever you need to do.
Yep.
I think that's how the communication needs to be.
Wow. Have more on this conversation as we take a look at the newspaper headlines shortly. Time for us to take a break, 19 minutes after 6. Okay, so we'll be looking at the papers and we'd like you to look at the papers with us. For only 10 shillings per day, you can actually access the entire Standard newspaper and other publications from the Standard Group online. epaper.standardmedia.co.ke. That's epaper.standardmedia.co.ke. Log on there, go to the top right corner. You put in your password and username, and then once you do that, select what kind of package you want to pay for. Use M-Pesa or your card pay. As low as 10 bob per day. You get complimentary 10-day access to the e-paper archives, full access to the Standard Insider premium content, accessing new, exciting, informative magazine pullouts. All of these on epaper.standardmedia.co.ke. Good morning.
"24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is SpiceFM.
Mother's Day is coming up, and Naivas Supermarket is here to celebrate it with a Naivas mom. Just like moms, we are resilient, readily available, and always here to serve you. With over 71 fully stocked outlets countrywide and pocket-friendly prices to match all your household shopping needs, we endeavor to make the motherhood journey a little easier. We have Naivas shopping vouchers for a Naivas mom everywhere, as we have been inspired by moms for 30 years. A Naivas mom is a well taken care of mom. Naivas saves you money.
All right, so we're looking at mostly cloudy conditions in Nairobi at 16. Chance of light rain later, highs of 24 and lows of 14. Looking at other cities and towns. Nyeri is mostly cloudy at 13, highs of 23, highs of 24 in Nakuru, where it's clear at 15. 24 will be the high in Eldoret, where it's mostly clear at 14, and mostly cloudy conditions in Kisumu at 20, highs of 27 and lows of 19. It's mostly cloudy in Kakamega at 18, highs of 26. We'll see highs of 31 in Mombasa, where it's mostly clear at 25. It's 27 and clear in Malindi. Go to highs of 30 and lows of 26 today. It's raining in Kampala at 21, highs of 25 and lows of 18. Dar es Salaam is going to go to highs of 30 today, lows of 23 with mostly clear conditions. It's 10 and Johannesburg is clear. 21 the high and lows of 9. Light rain in Lagos this morning at 26, highs of 33 and lows of 27. Partly cloudy conditions in Kinshasa at 24, highs of 32. It's sunny in Beijing at 27. It's going to go to highs of 31 today and lows of 19. It's raining in Paris this morning at 10, highs of 15 and lows of 7. 10 degrees is what it is in London as well, and mostly cloudy. Highs of 16 and lows of 7, and rounding things out in New York, it's a warm night at 21. It'll go to highs of 27 and lows of 17.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
All right,
Spice
22
FM,
minutes
Nairobi.
after 6. Live streaming on SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Who's online?
Okay, quite a number of people this morning. Jared Atur is tuned in from the docks
Okay.
in County 001.
Okay.
So now you know where that is.
Kapale Ducks.
Docks. Charity Minor tuned in from Milimani Estate this morning in Nakuru. Jose Minor and Dohio tuned in from Malindi, and Gasheri Wambijiwe tuned in this morning from Thika Road and says, happy to join you this beautiful Wednesday. Absolutely. Okay, Julius Ndroga is tuned in from Italy. Where in Italy? But okay. Good morning to you.
The Italian part.
The Italian part of Italy. Voila. All right. Stanley Kamwigi is tuning from Dandora this morning. And Mombasa is well tuned with Robert Mbogo. Stanley Ngashe Stan tuned in. Many yeses from Juja, he says. Rogers Lai tuned in from Mombasa. Kisumu is well, just in case you were wondering. That's where Vincent is sitting in from. Moses Gashari says, Juja rigging in the popular MP, sad from the deep state. Bonchari, the mama fought real war. Next year she wins. Our MCA won a landslide. Kudos, he says. Okay.
Atete.
Yo.
Juja is rigging in the popular candidate.
Yes.
See, if the candidate is popular, why are they being rigged in? Is it not possible that a popular candidate is being elected?
It is possible.
Or what are we saying? The popular one is being rigged out. Okay.
Popular for whom could be the question here. Okay, Sam Amoni is tuned in and says good morning, as is Bede Wamacha. Good morning, everybody, is what Dallas says. And Aboko is asking, where is President Nelson Havi? Well, he might be at home right now, but okay. So good morning, everybody, and welcome.
Yes, everybody, welcome to the Situation Room. We are glad that you're with us today. CT, today's proverb.
A snake that you can see does not bite.
A snake that you can see does not bite.
Yes. What they didn't add was does not bite you.
At the point you're seeing it.
Because you're seeing it.
Okay.
If you're seeing it, it means you'll avoid it.
Okay. Okay. That's okay. That's what you say.
That is precisely what I'm saying.
Okay. Okay then.
Yes, but there's always the little detail. The snake might also see you. And there are those who argue that snakes bite you because you either surprise them or you cause harm or you step on them.
Yeah.
That when they see you, they are more likely to actually
attack.
No, they're more likely to actually take off. There's one variety of snake that is known not to do that. Okay? The viper. It is known. It will see you, it will head towards you. Oh, there's another one also. The mamba. It is also known to see you and come, well, it will head towards you and greet you.
So it just comes to shake hands. It just wants to say hello.
It actually comes to shake fangs.
Ni salamu tu.
Yes, a painful salam would
usihepe.
actually end up in your death.
Wacha kutoroka. Ni salamu. What? Okay, so let's take a look at the headlines then.
All right. So surprises and upsets for big three in polls is what we're looking at yesterday. And then early today, early results in tightly contested by-elections in Bonchari and Juja constituencies in Rory Ward, where parties associated with top political guns, Uhuru, Ruto and Raila, saw some celebrate and others lick their wounds. So took center stage yesterday. And yes, claims of rigging. We saw the IEBC step in and stop tallying because, things were about to get ugly. But the ODM man takes the early lead in the closely fought Bonchari poll. And the Jubilee Party were last evening engaged in a tight battle for the Bonchari parliamentary seat as the ODM recorded an early lead. Unconfirmed provisional results showed ODM flag bearer Pavel Oimeke leading in 91 out of the 102 polling stations with 7141 votes, followed by UDA's Teresia Bitutu with 6,595, while Jubilee's party Zebedeo Opore had garnered 6,486. So, yes, some people came out happy, or rather some people are expectant. Others are licking their wounds, according to this report. Interestingly, because the Nyamira governor, Amos Nyaribo, with all of this said, it is important to note that the National Police has its own structure of operations and command, and not everything which is done by its officers comes from the Interior CS. This is coming from the complaints that were made previously that the police were being used to, quote-unquote, settle things, and that state power should not have been used in the manner in which it was being used. We saw these complaints coming from ODM. Now, we're hearing from the Nyamira governor that, you know what, sometimes police act on their own volition. They're not necessarily acting with orders from above. So everybody should kind of relax.
They could become acting on orders from above, but not from the very above.
Not the very above that you would you would think.
Yeah, it's just some above.
Not the real above.
Not the real above.
These are pretenders to the throne.
Okay, so we expect to get now the proper results later on this morning. Hopefully, by the end of the show, we should be able to get maybe results from Rurie or from Bonchari. Let's see whether Juja will also have finished. Okay, it's going to be interesting. As one is going to be interesting. There's another one here. There's a story on page 10 of The Nation today, which says the headline, Lake region headed the India way. Infections have surged more than 300% in recent weeks. Extent of community transmission of the deadly Indian variant is unclear. This is a warning from the experts who are saying there's a possibility of an India-like situation in Lake Victoria region after COVID-19 infections surged that high, 300% in 2 weeks. The region for months spared the ravages of the pandemic has in recent days become the national hotspot, with positivity rates higher than the national average in the last 6 days. For instance, the number of confirmed COVID-19 infections per day surged from less than 50 at the start of the year to an average of 150, indicating a threefold increase. The ministry is also noting that 270 people in the region had contracted the virus in the last 24 hours of testing. So basically, and this is also the same place where the Indian variant has been confirmed, has been traced. So the story is raising concern here and saying, there are concerns. The 14 counties around this region, we're talking about Bungoma, Busia, Homa Bay, Kakamega, Kisii, Kisumu, Migori, Nyamira, Siaya, Trans Nzoia, Kericho, Bomet, Nandi, and Vihiga. Among the most affected by the recent surge in infections are the urban centers of Kisumu, Kisii, Bungoma, and Kericho, as well as the transport corridor running from the Rift Valley town of Nakuru to border towns in Nyamira and Busia. So there's concern here coming from the various people. Professor Kamarogo, who is the chairman of the Committee of Eminent Persons on COVID-19 Advisory, Control and Socioeconomic Impact Mitigation, in the region said yesterday that if nothing is done quickly to reverse the trend, this region, as well as the rest of the country, could face a surge in infections that would overrun health facilities and infrastructure. Big concern, big flags being raised here, warning and caution being sounded. Who's listening?
And yet, we know that if the vaccination exercise was taken as seriously as it should be, these predictions would be muted.
Yep.
Because people would be in a position to actually fight the pandemic should it actually rear its head.
Yep.
But as things stand, these predictions seem to be headed towards the eventuality that they are saying we will head to.
And this is a serious one. It's another story still related to this one says, despite Governor Anyang' Nyong'o imposing tough COVID-19 measures in Kisumu, it's business as usual. Most town service matatus and those ferrying passengers in and out of Kisumu city still carry excess passengers. Tuk-tuks often carry 7 passengers instead of 3.
So these tough measures, which ones are they really?
Similar wayward behavior is seen in funerals where social distancing is not observed and neither is wearing of face masks. The governor has ordered mortuaries to keep bodies for no more than 72 hours. Relatives collecting their loved ones' remains should do so by 10 a.m. He has further directed that no morgue be allowed to admit bodies from other facilities. The county government has banned night vigils and eating at funerals, where attendance is restricted to a maximum of 200 mourners. For the past week, however, the COVID cases have been on an upward trend, and the health chief officer, Gregory Ganda, is raising concern over the behavior that's escalating the community transmissions. A lot needs to happen in terms of communication, in terms of bringing the community on board on the situation that's happening then in this particular region and what needs to be done by all parties.
You see, here we have an option. Huh? The option is get people vaccinated.
Okay.
It provides a sure protection. Right? The option that the government seems to be seeking is to change the behavior of people. It's difficult. It's difficult, and it's made even more difficult when their livelihood is under threat by these restrictions, which are supposed to be good for them.
The behavior change that they're seeking is not going to happen in this period within which you want them to have the vaccine. That's why the communication is what needs to change. What you tell the people, not how you want them to think, is what is going to have an impact here. What you tell people in terms of how they can protect themselves to then protect those livelihoods, which you should have been sorting out in the first place. It just needs to be a shift. Right now, in this period where you want people to be vaccinated, you want to change the way they think, it's not going to happen.
It's going to be a tough one. Let's take a break anyway. 27 minutes to 7. Let's take a look at the traffic and then look at more headlines shortly. Good morning. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. Thank you for tuning in.
"24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
As the Kenyans are roared into the home straight here, 4 Kenyan queens have lit up this balmy Bahamian night.
It's where the rivalry is unmatched, where the soul meets the track, where the great are distinguished from the good. An arena where the records are broken.
A new world record. It's not just been beaten, it's been obliterated.
A stage where the legends are born. For Team Kenya, the Olympics is more than just a sport. It is our tradition. It's an event that has put Kenya on the roadmap. The Standard Group lets you watch every minute and every action live in the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. Because we live for Team Kenya. We live for the game. At Standard Group, sports lives here.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth
All right,
jazz,
half an hour later, what
neo
is it looking like on the roads today? We are seeing some traffic building up on Mombasa Road, coming from the Cabanas towards, actually further back, right? From the SGR, that side of the road. From the Eastern Bypass, from Utawala coming towards Mombasa Road, it's actually picked up quite some. So it is already getting thick and heavy this morning. It's building up on Thika Road as you're coming from Muthaiga also coming from Kiambu Road, coming from the Garden Estate. Beyond that, Safari Park Hotel, it's moving slowly as you go towards the Pangani underpass and then out towards Ngara. Going to take some time to get out of this one. It's normal morning traffic for now. Hasn't gotten too crazy yet. We saw crazy traffic on Langata Road and Thika Road yesterday afternoon. Hopefully we're over that and it will not be too mad this morning. But we're going to have to keep an eye on things. Let us know just in case, okay? SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Spice FM, Malindi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
There's an interesting article in the Standard, and it's on page 14. The headline reads, "Shock as new graduates barred from law school."
Okay.
It's an interesting issue because it's like two acts that relate to the practice and the training of law have conflicted. The conflict is between the Legal Education Act of 2012 that determines the role and function of the Commission on Legal Education on such matters. And then the other one is the Kenya School of Law Act of 2012, which also gives the Kenya School of Law the right to determine what it is that are the basics that are required for you to be admitted to the school.
Yes.
Now, why is it an issue? Because you suddenly find that you have people who've graduated from our university and universities abroad, and they present themselves to go to what we call the Advocate Training Program,
Yes.
Kenya School of Law, and they told, sorry, you don't qualify. And if you look deeper into the matter, you find that the issue arises not from their having qualified as, well, should we say legally trained individuals, but it's the qualification they had prior to that. There is a minimum requirement.
KCSE.
And you're here. Hey.
What should you have scored in KCSE for you to qualify for the LLB degree?
Yes. That is the discussion. Because if you qualified and you got a C with its variations, with its variants, okay? ATP say, apana, that one.
Oh, but
No, that's not happening. So now the question and what has been raising a little furor here is, so which of these bodies actually has the right to determine this? And like with all legal issues, the only way that you can referee this well is if you introduce a new bill
Yes.
that makes an appropriate amendment,
Yes.
and that has already been done.
yes.
So now the new bill, they say there's a section 8(3)(a) that will now read, when it goes through, the council shall make regulations in respect of requirements for the admission of persons seeking to enroll in all legal education programs.
Countrywide.
All. Yes. So,
This has been some serious stuff going on.
oh yes, it
Because
has.
you see, the Kenya School of Law acts with its own
Yes.
legal framework.
And it has its own legal
And for
framework.
you to become an advocate, for you to be admitted to the bar, you must do the ATP, the Advocates Training Program at the Kenya School of Law. And this will now determine what you can go and study law from any Kenyan university or any university abroad, but you must go through the Kenya School of Law, and then you pass the bar exam, you're admitted to the bar. Kenya School of Law has its requirements
Yes, it does.
for you to come in. The Committee for Legal Education, then Commission on Legal
Commission,
Education,
yes.
has
Council,
council looks at, for you as a university to offer this degree, do you meet the certain requirements? Do you have remember the issue they had with some universities? You don't have the number of lecturers required. You don't have the facilities required to offer this degree program. But you see what also universities were doing is people would go through another longer route, get through some diploma programs, some other programs, and then you go and get a law degree. You had not originally qualified from Form 4 to get to university to study law, but you've gone through, practice. You've been a paralegal, you've worked in a law firm, you've done some certificate here and there, you've got some diploma, then you get admitted to university, which is allowed by the Commission, the Council for Legal Education. You get your degree. School of Law tells you, hold it.
Wait a minute.
you don't qualify. Now, the cabinet last week discussed that new bill. And according to the new bill, actually the new legal framework that the cabinet approved, the advocate training program is not going to be the preserve of the Kenya School of Law.
No.
Any university can be allowed by the Council for Legal Education to offer the ATP. Monopoly, KSL, gone.
Actually, there's an interesting section here because when they're amending the CLE Act, they're also going to amend the Kenya School of Law Act. And it will now read, a person shall not qualify for admission to a course of study at the school unless the person has met the admission requirements prescribed by the CLE. Mm-hmm. So powers now given to CLE. It's interesting, isn't it?
It is. Quite interesting.
But you see, it is accepted that there are many courses that you are allowed to take what you call a bridging course.
Yeah.
Even just to qualify for higher learning, you are allowed to take a bridging course.
Yeah.
So if somebody takes what you're calling that circuitous route, it's with the understanding that the knowledge that is actually required for someone to practice has been attained.
Yep.
And just that at some point somebody managed to get, well, a grade that didn't quite qualify them doesn't mean they're not capable. Why people don't perform well in exams may have very little to do with their ability to actually do well in the exams. So, there we go.
Another very interesting thing. Last week, if you had met the Treasury CS, Ukur Yatani, and asked him for some money, he'd have told you, kuna check na ngoja ive mahali, even next week.
So now?
Kuna ka check kanaiva. Now, check imeiva. 44 billion shillings from the IMF has checked in. A month after the IMF approved 257 billion shillings loan amid a public outcry over Kenya's ability to repay the piling debt load, the lender has cleared a second disbursement to Nairobi. IMF yesterday announced that its executives had completed their pre-disbursement engagements with the Kenyan officials and approved another 44.2 billion shillings tranche to be wired to the CBK as part of the 38-month program. This brings the total of money that we have received so far to 77.9 billion shillings. Approval of the second batch, which is expected to hit Kenya's accounts by next month, means IMF is satisfied with the reforms that are being implemented by the Kenyan government since the loan is tied to some specific performance conditions. So we are checking the boxes. All right. They were saying, this guy is going to be very tough on how we might not. No, we are going smoothly.
So these reforms that are being implemented are which ones?
They're happening, kichini chini.
Oh, okay, sir.
You'll see the impact.
Okay, sir. Okay.
But I was thinking, Eric, when we mentioned in passing the budget and the minuscule amount of money that had been allocated for health care needs, are we to assume that they're doing that because they've gotten this money?
That they'll
That
add
they're
more
doing
later.
Well, we've got this loan, and it's specific for health, specific COVID money.
Well, it's specific
COVID
for
related.
economic revival because of COVID. So all these other activities, even when you see money being used in infrastructure, it'll be used in infrastructure because this is expected to boost the economy post-COVID. If you see money being used to put up a market, it's being used to put up a market because this is part of the grand economic recovery strategy post-COVID.
Those 235,000 Kenyans who signed a petition asking IMF not to loan the country money had a point.
They had it?
Yeah, and I'm beginning to wonder whether IMF actually what they say they are.
Why?
How do you give the Kenyan government that sort of leeway to expend money?
It's not a sort of... Look...
No, in all honesty.
But if
unless there are
if you
details
think
that
about
I don't
it,
understand.
Remember when we had a conversation with Professor Nyang'yo
Yes.
on what they had come up with as the county's economic recovery. And he was talking about all these economic activities that need to take place, including when he was telling us about rice. The economic activities that need to take place will, put money in people's pockets, and therefore they'll be able to recover economically. There's still some money that will go into healthcare. We still need to support health services. We still need to get PPEs procured. We still need to think about getting more drugs. We still need to think about getting the vaccines. All those things will happen, but concurrently with economic activity.
I think completely differently. And why I think differently is this. All those plans are all good and well, but if we're to go by the history of how we plan and how we implement, they're just plans, full stop. Okay? If you actually vaccinated the people and ensured that they could feel safe to go back to their activities, all these things we're talking about would happen. Because you would have a population of people who can actually work. So all these stories we have about, well, because of this and because of the other, will have reduced the because of this and because of the other.
Vaccinate the people.
Yes.
Because that what you do is that you're letting out a healthy crop of people who will not be under risk of getting sick, and then you don't have to close down the country. Remember, what got us into this economic mess in the first place, what got the world into the economic mess, is that people could not come out. People could not work as normal. So what needs to happen in order for them to work as normal is that you need to give them that first line of defense and protection against the disease.
Things need to happen concurrently, guys. Concurrently.
You know, concurrently, yes, Eric. But if one of the concurrencies is actually lagging behind, all right, you're not vaccinating people. 50 million people you've barely vaccinated 1 million people, and then you want this economic stimulus, and God Almighty, where on earth will that go?
You're waiting for Biden to.
So what if you reintroduce sick people back into this economy that you've built up? Then
the situation will be worse than India. Infinitely worse than India.
Biden and Xi Jinping.
We're going to solve the situation.
And Putin are gonna come in.
No.
They'll bring us the vaccines. Let's take a break. 13 minutes to 7.
"24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
We've been all through it, you know. We go to school, study hard, get the much-deserved grades, and celebrate our graduation. Then reality hits us. We get to the job market and we simply don't know where to start off. Thankfully, by visiting jobs.standardmedia.co.ke, your next career breakthrough could be a click away. Get the best in career advice, employment opportunities, internships, part-time jobs, CV writing, and interview coaching. Give your career the much-needed lift on jobs.standardmedia.co.ke.
Naivas Supermarket believes in celebrating mothers every day. Tune in to Sugar and Spice with me, Yolanda Mulo and DJ Absolute from 11 a.m. every weekday to learn more about a Naivas mom and the similarities you can draw from the role it plays to Kenyans across the country. And stand a chance to win shopping vouchers with Naivas.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
11 to 7.
Okay, let's just go into the region. Kagame wants a fair hearing for the hotel hero. Rwanda's President Paul Kagame says he wants to see a fair trial for Paul Rusesabagina, the man portrayed as a hero in the 2004 Hollywood movie about the Rwandan genocide. Mr. Rusesabagina said he was illegally abducted in Dubai last year and flown to Rwanda, and has recently said he will not appear in court again as he does not expect to receive justice. He's accused of terror charges related to deadly attacks in Rwanda in 2018 and 2019 by the FLN, the armed wing of the Rwandan Movement for Democratic Change, a coalition of opposition parties of which he is vice president. His lawyers have denied the charges against him. So speaking on an interview with France 24 on Monday, President Kagame warned against racist attitudes towards Rwanda's judicial system. I want to see a fair trial myself. Why do you think being fair belongs to Europe or the US and not to us? It's like the only thing to be fair in Rwanda or in Africa, it has to be supervised by Europe or the US or some other place. No, absolutely no, he said. He also said there is nothing wrong in how Mr. Rusesabagina was arrested. What's wrong in tricking a criminal you are looking for? He posed.
You use all means possible.
I mean, it's a criminal.
It is not illegal to lure somebody to a trap. Is it?
When the person is an alleged criminal.
Is it?
Is it?
No,
And
it's
why
not.
is it that only justice that comes from the US and
Your
Europe
definition of justice is what
is
we work
right?
with.
Absolutely
Surely.
not.
He has a valid point, doesn't he?
He absolutely does. He says it's enough. No, stop it. Let's do things this way. We are doing it this way.
This is how we're going to do our things.
Yep.
Okay. So Uganda yesterday signed a deal with guess which Chinese company? China Road and Bridge Corporation.
These same ones over here.
I was actually going to tell you that myself.
That's all you're going to say.
I was going to tell you.
Yeah, my friend, those guys are big in this region. So it is for construction of a 260 kilometers, century-old, not construction, but for refurbishing of the 260 kilometers meter gauge railway between Malaba and Kampala. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Did we not ask this question at some point and asked it over and over and over?
Which
and
question?
over
Which
again? The
question?
question of, look, we already have a railway, okay? SGR is good. We understand. Good. Nothing stopping us from having two railway lines. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Because countries that are advanced have a line for the bullet. You know that one which goes, yeah, that one. You blink, it's gone, okay? Then they have one for that one, okay?
Gotcha.
They have, some even have three, so that, you know, when you want to take cargo from point A to point B, you don't have a problem.
Yeah.
But SGR was everything. And the discussion was Naivasha, then Kisumu, then Malaba.
Then Kampala, then Rwanda.
Yes.
And the three countries had actually agreed on this thing in principle.
Yes,
It
in
was
fact, at
actually
the rate
agreed.
they were going, they're going to end up in Ouagadougou.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's part of the plan. For real. It's part of the
Yeah,
plan.
and to end it in West Africa. Yeah,
Yes.
we get it.
But we have a railway line that existed. And when sanity now prevailed, we actually saw the Nanyuki line
It being
coming to life. We saw it coming to life.
Yes.
It existed.
Yes.
This one can go as far as even Moyale.
Yes.
This line that they're talking about already exists.
Yes.
It isn't the only one. That old railway line, my friend, was well thought out. You're talking Uganda. Why don't you even talk of Tanzania? Okay. It exists. It's just a question of connecting it.
Just making sure that it works.
Yes, and then
So now what they've done is because the Chinese did their thing. Remember when the Chinese had already indicated, pesa or tas, we will give you money. You guys start. They started. Go to Naivasha. They were like,
So now-
this money, my brother came and he has children who need school fees.
I just
So
had
we're
to
not
dive
given
in.
the money. Now, Kenya did not have money to continue with the line to Malaba. So Kenya thought of refurbishing the old railway line and building a connection between Naivasha and into the old railway line. Uganda has also done the same. And in fact, Kenya's CS for Transport and Infrastructure, James Masharia, was with Kenya Railways officials in Uganda to facilitate the signing of this particular deal because they're saying, look, so here is where we are. You know what? Plan A didn't work. Let's go plan B quickly. We already have the railway. We shall connect. We shall bring the railway to Malaba working. You guys, can you make the railway from Malaba to Kampala working? Uganda has said, fine, bring the Chinese guys. We signed. Now they've signed. So the original plan is still ongoing, only that it is not going to be SGR. We are going to have SGR up to Naivasha and then meter gauge up to Kampala. Yeah. So the original plan. Umeshika? So that's what is going to
I'm
happen.
getting a headache.
No, why are you getting yours? Why?
Why?
I'm getting a headache. This is the point where I ask myself, what do these people take us for?
What's the issue, City?
What's wrong?
The issue is this is something that could have been done from the very beginning, and this discussion of the billions that we're talking about needn't have arisen.
I think the issue, CT, is not whether the billions could have. It's the extra expense. This thing was inflated.
Is there any Kenyan project that doesn't have extra
It
expenses?
was inflated. Even the refurbishing. If you're going that way, then
it
you're
wasn't
saying
inflated, Eric. It was hyper inflated.
yes, it is that. However, you see the way you're saying you have two lines now between Nairobi and Mombasa. We have two lines. So in case we have increased demand, we have 2 lines. But they hyperinflated it. That's a problem.
You know, Eric, I think I'm going to look forward to more mornings like this when you take all the time and energy to tell me something I already know. It's good.
Wow.
What's in the daily business?
Okay. Let me put aside this headache and look at the daily business. All right. This one is interesting. Employers to pay NHIF contributions for staff. Okay. There is a bill. Let me just read it. And that's
She's confused.
No, headlines are supposed to confuse you. So now that I've confused you, now let me read the bit that actually explains away the confusion.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
Kenyan employers face, it hasn't happened, face additional burden of statutory deductions if Parliament passes a bill that requires business owners to match workers' monthly contributions to the NHIF.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying, all right? Doubling the 1,700 that top contributors make to the NHIF ranks high on the list of targeted changes to the NHIF Act. So,
Which is being debated in Parliament, by the way.
as we
Today.
today.
As Parliament resumes today, one of the things that they'll do, apart from talking about Nini.
Sorry. You are here on the phone.
What I'm wondering was, what's up?
It's called technology.
Oh,
You are not allowed to do that. I am allowed to do that. Okay?
Erasmus.
I'm allowed to have challenges with technology, not you. So
I'm
please
seeing Eric here talking.
stop getting into my sphere. You're going to have people confusing you for myself. I'm allowed to do those things, not you.
okay. So the bill is coming up again for reading. In fact, I saw the
Yes.
National Assembly Gazette notice. I mean, not Gazette, but advert telling us what they're going to be discussing today when they come back.
Yes. The way I see it, because
So
from-
currently, you are deducted by your employer money to pay NHIF, but you're
that's it.
deducted
It's your money going to NHIF.
going to NHIF.
Your employer
Now
just
the-
pays NHIF your money.
The proposal is that you are deducted, and then the employer matches.
What you're paying.
Because currently you own you. It's just you.
Where, my friend? To what benefit?
To you as an individual.
To the employer. I'm
The
talking
employer
here.
contributing
I'm
to
talking here
your
as
employee welfare.
I'm talking as an entrepreneur. So why am I paying? Why?
So
There's a law that says that if I have an employee and I have a pension scheme, I shall contribute to their pension. Now and also
you're contributing to their healthcare as well.
yes, and in the private schemes, I contribute to their health in the private scheme.
Yes.
Now, what we are saying is that even an HIF, the statutory one, I'll also pay.
Yes.
What
Do you know
does
what's
the-
likely to happen?
Oh yeah, I understand. what's likely to
Those
happen.
private health schemes by employers, many employers will tell you, you know what, I'm not paying to this particular private company for health, and then
Pay
I'm
the
still
government.
paying NHIF. So council government, I'm paying for your NHIF, you're sorted.
But you know, the simple arithmetic leads me to think, if I was paying 500, then my employer now pays another 500. It means I'm able to boost whatever benefits I was supposed to get from this particular cover, because essentially I'm paying more.
Well, unless the bill says that, tells the NHIF that now, if the employer pays, so now whatever you're giving this person, they get double.
You see, that's aspect one. Aspect two, NHIF is a parastatal. Okay? If parastatal has money, because this one,
Government
parastatal
has
has more money. Thank you very much. I will not continue discussing this thing further. I think the point I was trying to make has been made.
Okay.
Yes.
Time for the news. Good morning. It's 7 a.m.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. SpiceFM.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice
Good morning,
FM.
this is the Newswire. I'm Leah Mubarak. ODM candidate in Bonchari by-elections, Pavel Oimeke, has been declared the winner. Oimeke garnered 8,049 votes against his closest competitor Zebedio Pore of Jubilee Party, who had 7,279 votes. UDA party candidate Teresia Bitutu was third with 6,094 votes. The results were released after the counting of votes from 103 stations. In the Juja constituency by-elections, IBC suspended the counting of votes. CEO Wafula Chebukati said the census was halted after the audit area at Mangu High School was raided by several people led by Kiambu Governor James Nyoro. According to Chebukati, the raid made it difficult to continue with the operation. He, however, assured area residents that all election materials had been placed under strict security to prevent disruption before operations could proceed. At the time of the move, George Koimburi of PEP was in the lead with 10,615 votes, while Susan Waititu followed with 4,892. In Ruri ward by-election, UDA candidate Francis Muraya has been declared the winner. Francis got 4,303 votes, followed by Jubilee's Peter Githinji with 3,143 votes. Deputy President William Ruto celebrated the win of UDA candidates. Meanwhile, ODM Raila Odinga says that what was witnessed in the by-elections in Bonchari and Juja is an abuse of police powers and an arrogant display of impunity. Raila says security forces exist to serve the people and not the interests of those out to conduct political experiments. He maintained that the peaceful coexistence post-2018 must not be taken for granted by some rogue elements wanting to confuse the handshake for an excuse to erode our hard-earned liberties. There is a worldwide shortage for the supply of COVID-19 vaccine COVAX. WHO's Tedros Adhanom says if countries which haven't used their vaccines would share with neighboring countries, it would help handle the shortage as most countries which have access or unused vaccines are leaving them to expire.
As you know, high-income countries account for 15% of the world's population, but have 45% of the world's vaccines. And lower middle-income countries account for almost half of the world's population, but have received just 17% of the world's vaccines. So the gap is really huge.
This comes as the government remains optimistic that they'll receive the 30 million doses of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine by August, yet WHO says there is already a 140 million shortage of COVID vaccines. 5 robbery suspects have been shot dead by officers from the Special Crimes Unit near Mahoho Trading Center along Kakamega Kisumu Road. 2 Seska pistols and some bullets, a pair of police uniforms and several mobile phones were recovered from the vehicle the 5 had been using. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
Okay, kwa barabarani this morning. Okay, so there's an accident at the Ngong SGR intersection this morning, and that is causing some major traffic this morning. If you're on Gong Road to the city outbound, it's heavy. It's also heavy on Ruaka Road, Runda towards the 54. And then so you head out towards Limuru Road, it's getting jam-packed, guys. The Eastern Bypass, Utawala, visibility is very low this morning. The fog is also quite low. And so this is affecting traffic. We already looked at that a little bit earlier. And we saw that it was building up. So it has done just that. So the Eastern Bypass, Gong Road, going towards the Southern Bypass, Langata Road, we hope and pray it looks a little bit better today. Coming off of Thika Road, Muthaiga Square, the Pangani Underpass, going towards the Globe Cinema Overpass, it's already a mismatch. Even my mouth, there's traffic. Okay, so coming out of Westlands also looks like it's quite heavy, but not too bad. Let's skip over into Mombasa, where KFS tells us 3 ferries up for use this morning. Not to forget, pay your toll charges via M-Pesa *721#. Don't use cash. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down.
It's 5
This
after
is
7.
the
Good
Situation
morning,
Room.
and thank you very
The
much for
only
tuning
way-
in to the Situation Room this lovely Wednesday morning. Wherever you are, we're glad you tuned in. CT, today's proverb.
Right. A snake that you can see does not bite.
A snake that you can see does not bite. Okay. So it sounds to me like it's a translation of a Swahili one.
All these proverbs are translations from some.
Nyoka umuonaye haumi. Zimu ile kujualo.
Actually, what is of interest when you talk about proverbs is not the proverb itself, but probably the story behind it and how it is that it got to that particular point. And often the understanding and explanation is in folklore, stories that people tell. Remember, one of the things that Africa is known for is its wildlife.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And so our folklore, as well as our proverbs, will be very richly embedded by the imagery of wildlife, whether it's a forest, whether it's a huge animal, a small one. Yes. But usually, the stories around animals also play a role, apart from just in teaching lessons. Meaning, you want to tell a story to pass on a certain message, and you use animal characters. Okay. For instance, why it is that the chicken is always the bird that is sacrificed. Why it is that people who believe in sacrificial processes and practices sacrifice the chicken. Communities have their story. But the one that I'm thinking of emanates from West Africa. It is attributed to the Igbo. And they say that the animal kingdom had a meeting. And they had problems that required resolving. And when they consulted their wise persons, the wise persons came up with the understanding that it was important to have a sacrifice. Now, on the day of the meeting, when they were supposed to decide which of them would be sacrificed, the chicken had an urgent matter to attend to. And so the chicken went to attend this urgent matter. The meeting took place, and no one was willing to volunteer. So someone said, why don't we volunteer the chicken? Now, there's a point here. Before the chicken left, the chicken had said, I will concur with any decision that you make. You have my consent. So, when the chicken came back, the chicken was informed that, given that you had given us your consent, the understanding is that you are the one who's going to be sacrificed. Now, there's a proverb that explains this particular situation and says, if decisions are made in your absence, you will get the short end of the stick. Yes, yes. So, when you talk of proverbs, there's always the need to understand the history of the story behind it, because the story is what explains how it is that entire story is now shortened into a sentence or two. Yes.
Animals.
Okay.
Animals. And their stories.
And their kingdom.
Animals. Kenyan is.
And their place in the economies of the African continent. Again, remember the story we said of if the lion had its own Chinua Achebe here, if lions had their own storyteller, this narrative would be a bit different.
Yeah.
By the same token, if the animals had a say in how to manage the monies that we accumulate from having them as part and parcel of a very important part of our economy, don't you think the story would be different?
It would. It would completely be different. And that comes into the conversation that we want to have this morning. How many national parks do you know that we have in Kenya?
There are many.
Gazetted national parks. And remember, I'm not saying game reserves. I'm saying
You're not talking conservancies.
conservancies.
You're talking game
National park.
game park.
National parks. Yes. How many? Guess.
I'm
Take
not
a
going
number.
to guess. I'm going to Google search.
Take a number.
16.
16.
I just felt
Which
like
ones can you name?
I mean, I can name many.
Number
Nakuru.
one.
Okay.
One.
Naivasha.
Naivasha.
No, why don't I just start with the big ones? Mara. Lake Nakuru.
This is going really well.
But of course it is.
It is.
Ruma National Park. Serengeti is in Tanzania, isn't it?
Yes.
It is. Savo.
That is the one I was looking for.
That's the one.
That's the one I was looking
Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
Which Savo?
East and
or
West.
Home is.
Savo is best.
That's right.
Yes. Then,
Which other one?
there's
Is
one.
the Aberdares a national park?
Aberdares, yes.
It is.
National
Okay.
park.
It is. There's another national park.
Nairobi.
Yes.
Yes,
of
that one's
course.
Nairobi, of course. Born Free.
Which one is that?
Elsa the Lion.
What is the national park called?
I'm looking for the national park. This is the process of me looking for the national park. Joy Adams.
Wow.
Among those ones that you, many of them are correct, apart from Masai Mara is actually not a national
It's a
park.
reserve.
Yes,
Excuse me. Masai Mara is a national park.
it is not.
It's a reserve.
Excuse me.
Masai Mara is a game reserve, and that's why it's not under the management of the Kenyan
That is
WS.
why it is a national park.
As long as they're animals,
It's a park.
Yes, and people go there and pay money
And
to
they
go and
see.
see these animals, and the animals also see the people. National park. Unless you're telling me the definition of national park is that it must be managed by the government.
fantastic. Now, let me tell you the national parks that we have, all right? Mount Kenya National Park, Kunja Kidole, say one, Nabo.
Right.
Amboseli National Park, Are. South Island National Park, Uni. Salwa Samp National Park, Ongwan. Sibiloi National Park, Imit. Ruma National Park, Oldonyo Sabuk National Park, Ndere Island National Park, Mount Longonot National Park, Mount Elgon National Park, Meru National Park, Marsabit National Park, Kora National Park. That's the one you're looking for.
Correct.
Joy Adams.
Yeah, Adams.
Chulu Hills National Park, Central Island National Park, Savo West National
The
Park,
other than in Kwale.
Lake Nakuru National Park,
Right. See, we've got Nakuru.
Savo East National Park, Nairobi National Park, Aberdare National Park, and Hell's Gate National Park.
How many are there?
And what about the one in Kwale?
You lost the count. Which one?
There's a national park in Kwale. Or is it a game reserve?
You're thinking Shimba Hills.
Yes. That's a game reserve.
Yes, as a reserve.
Okay. And here I am all this time I've been thinking it's a national park.
So, 21 gazetted national park, and this is I'm getting this information from the Kenya KWS website. Now, the reason why we're talking about this is because was it early last week, Tourism Cabinet Secretary Najib Balala was having a conversation. He was addressing the European Union Green Diplomacy webinar last week, and he hinted at a new model of business for the tourism sector that might see national parks and game reserves managed by private agencies. So basically what you're seeing is the lessons that we are taking out of this COVID issue are many and varied. One of those is maybe we need to have another way of actually managing our national resources. Instead of having to dedicate so much resource under one entity called the Kenya Wildlife Service and then telling them, you manage our national parks, why don't you give each national park to each independent private entity, say, you have taken up, City and I are in healthcare. So you, Ndu, you can come up with 2 or 3 partners, get into conservancy, into conservation and such kind of business, and you will bid and you will win the contract to run the Nairobi National Park. So you run it for X number of years. That is something that he was saying. You know, he didn't say this is what we're going to do. He said, you know, some of those ideas are basically ideas that have been floated. And there have been reactions left, right, and center from various people in the country, in the tourism sector, just ordinary Kenyans who are thinking, come on now, you want to tell us now again we go into privatized, so Kenya will just become private everything. Even a thing as a natural resource like this one, we say we are privatizing it. So if a private entity comes in, what happens to it?
That is a worthwhile question.
Yes.
And worthy of debate.
Yes.
What does privatization mean? Because I think that really is the crux of the matter. We are reacting to what we understand privatization to be. Okay, the resource will be desecrated. The profit seeking will be king. The community that lives around there will not be considered. These are things that come to mind. But then, do we have examples of privatization and the process of privatization that has actually led to the benefit of the community? And I would say yes,
Absolutely.
it stares at us every day. Conservancies, because the community comes to an understanding with an investor.
Right.
All right, and the investor, and this is something. So the community actually part and parcel of the decision-making process of what happens in that particular.
So the community is in charge. This is basically
essentially they're
community
in charge.
land.
It's their land.
They're in charge of what's happening here. Then they lease out part of this and say,
This
you
vast
as an
land-
investor,
Yes.
you can come in and put in a facility,
Yes, you can.
not to run the conservancy,
No. The conservancy is actually run by the
community. Now, the proposal by the CS is to lease out the entire management of this. So let's say we're going to the game reserve called Masai Mara, world famous, and say, you, the community of Narok County, lease it out to this particular entity that then runs it. Manage the ecosystem, manage the animal, manage the park fees, manage the infrastructure within, manage everything. You are the ones then who sublease the people who operate lodges and hotels within the park.
Who gets that money that people pay when they go to the Masai Mara?
It's for the upkeep of the conservancy or the reserve.
I don't know.
It's either, if you're going to the conservancy side, the community. If you're going to the reserve, Narok County government.
Precisely. Why I bring this discussion in is because in the absence of a clear understanding such as that one, then you could argue that even when the county government that oversees or within whose boundaries this particular animal enclave is nestled, you could argue that it might actually be better to have a clear understanding of what privatization would do, because if it's left to the vagaries of a county government, the wananchi will not necessarily fully benefit from it. Because, after all, it's run by people whom you elected. And they will do what they normally do with these things.
But they're answerable to you ultimately.
That's the theory. That's the theory. You see, how do we hold our political leaders to account?
Okay, who gets the money that is paid at Amboseli National Park? Who's in charge? The Kenya Wildlife Service.
Yes.
So it goes to the Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife.
Yes.
Then it goes to the government.
Yes, it does.
Taxpayers. All of us benefit. Is it well managed? Is it not?
Oh, it's very well managed.
Okay.
Could more be done?
Oh, no, more could always be done. It's actually very well managed. KWS does a good job. There's no question about
for
them doing
sure.
a good job.
Yeah.
Okay? But if you look at KWS as a parastatal, you'll have to go back to the sort of leadership that they've had. And wildlife management is a mixed baggage. It's a mixed pot. It's a koroga, it's a tumbukiza. It's not. And because of that, you find that what you're dealing with is something that actually makes sense. KWS ensure that wildlife is protected. And then, by the way, what I'm talking about, again, I always have to talk about history. It's the training and the ethos around KWS. KWS have some of the best trained people who work within its ranks. And from what I see, they're a very disciplined lot. And that is thanks to the people who've headed KWS all along. Now, what am I saying? I am saying this story of privatization requires further clarity.
A lot of it.
Yes.
Let's have the conversation with the chairman of the Kenya Tourism Federation. This morning, about an hour ago, he actually got up and he was like, okay, I have seen this trending. It's only fair that I also give my opinion. Are we happy with the performance of our parks and even our parastatals? Mohammed Hersi then goes ahead to give his opinion on this particular matter. This morning in the Standard, the Chief Executive Officer of the Coast Branch of the Kenya Association of Hotel Keepers and Caterers, Dr. Sami Kwai, is quoted as saying, this proposed privatization could lead to an increase in entry fees, discouraging local and foreign tourists. He says, compare how the Mara Triangle Conservancy experiment worked vis-a-vis the Narok side of the Mara, or say the Amboseli. If private conservancies are on private land, let them be. It's a form of land use. But here we're talking about publicly owned national parks. This may hypothetically mean that Kenya Wildlife Service role is reduced to just being a regulator. Which way does this debate go? Let's bring in Mohammed Hersi, chairman of KTF. Good morning, Mohammed.
Morning, Eric and team. How are you guys?
Good morning.
Very well,
Doing
thanks.
all right.
How are you?
Oh, I'm all right, thank you.
Where are you? Are you in the Savo? Are you in Mombasa? Are you in any of these 21 national parks or any of the many other?
Today I'm in Mombasa. I'm in Mombasa Raha, 001.
Kabisa.
Yes.
Now, when the tourism CS was speaking last week, it was actually picked up by the news papers. So it was reported from last week. The reaction to it has been varied from various quarters. There are those that are saying, well, this is a good way to go. There are those that are saying, no, absolutely no way. Talk about giving this thing to a private entity. This is a plan by some people, a cabal of people, to basically start making money out of our tourism sector. And this is not the way to go. Where do you stand in this particular conversation?
Okay, firstly, we always say that the only constant thing is change. And we are the same people that always challenge tourism players and even government to do things differently. Now, is there an opportunity to make a change to see to it that our national parks and reserves are managed in a better way? Certainly, yes.
Mm-hmm.
National parks, at the end of the day, belong to the people of Kenya.
Mm-hmm.
And the government is only holding it, as a custodian.
Mm-hmm.
But the way the world is moving, we need efficiencies and we need better way of doing things. When you look at the national parks around the country, let's take the example of Savo East, Savo West. It's huge land.
Yep.
And I give credit, to the guys who sat down in the 60s, actually, who goes back all the way to the 50s and eventually the 70s, who decided, we need a park here. And when you look seriously at the land, Savo East, Savo West, it's not even ideal for farming.
Mm.
It's actually ideal for wildlife. Whoever came up with that idea actually was the right thing to do.
Mm.
Now, where was it coming from? Nothing has been finalized. This is just an opinion it's giving, because we've also asked for the concept paper so that we can go through it and we can look at it. But the fact remains that there are a lot of inefficiencies in most of these government-run outfits. If government can get out of these national parks and partner with the private sector, there's no harm in that. The world is changing. Look at even Mumbai. Mumbai has just privatized their airport. Somebody came and invested millions of dollars, and today is, state-of-the-art airport. When you're landing there and you're using facilities there, it really doesn't matter whether it is private sector or whether it is government. But I know where Kenyans are also coming from, including myself. There's a lot of suspicion. Trust levels, and I'll say without any fear, is very low. Kenyans will always tell you there is somebody lurking behind there who wants to take advantage. And their fears, it is there, because they've seen it in many places. When I posted my comment, somebody said, wait a minute, but it can go the Pantepa way.
Mm-hmm.
It can go like many other privatization. But on the other hand, I'm also saying it can also go Kenya Commercial Bank way.
Sure,
I
Mohammed.
worked for two.
So if I may ask you, if you imagine the situation that was void of any of this, malicious intent, it was just a pure intention to actually have things being better, what would be the advantages of privatizing some of these parks in Kenya today?
Actually, I will even try and avoid the name privatizing.
Okay.
Privatizing
handing over management to a private firm.
No, it comes with a lot of connotation. I will borrow from water reforms. I recall I was involved in the water reforms when we moved away from government and we had the water boards and all that, and I started in one of the boards. I'll use the word commercialize. When you look at how our parks are run, it's just an extension of government. I give a lot of credit, by the way, to KWS. Those are the same guys who managed to lift KWS from nothing, especially in the 88, 89, when our elephants were being killed left, right, center. When KWS, when Leakey was appointed by late President Daniel Moi, he went in and he had no funds, nothing. This is a guy who went out to raise funds by himself.
Yep.
And he managed to bring poaching under control. And KWS today, it is what it is today. In the past, people used to laugh at them because they didn't even have facilities, they had nothing. But people forget very fast where we came from. Basically, what happened was that a private person was given, was told, hey, look here, you run away with this thing. Because at that time, Dr. Richard Leakey, was in the forefront criticizing government and saying, look here, you are not doing enough about poaching. And President Moi then said, you know what? Why don't you take charge?
Let's come
see
and
what
do
you
it.
can do.
Yeah.
Come and do it. And he did it very well. Many of you may not be aware. The outfit like KWS employs close to 5,000 people. Then you wonder where are all these people? I think what we need to fight for is efficiencies. And efficiencies obviously lack in many government organizations, just not about KWS. It's about growing the cake and making it more efficient. And it is not about KWS is going to be thrown out. Never. I will never support that. But KWS will be a landlord. KWS will be there, to keep a close leash on the people running the place.
So
now,
Go ahead.
You know, we want an organization that has got an entrepreneurial mind. And KWS have been trying, even privatizing some of their, not privatizing, but inviting bidders to come and put lodges, camps, and name it.
Yes.
We want somebody to come in and, entrepreneurial and try and develop some of these places. When you look at the road network, let's face it, KWS have now been told, you know what, guys, we can no longer fund you, self-fund yourself. The only way KWS are able to get funds is through park fees. When there are no visitors, they can't get any money, nothing. They have nothing yet. So if you are to privatize the place, these guys will really go out of their way, including, things like...
But Mohammed, don't they also raise money from those parks and lodges that are operating within the park?
They are very minimal. They're very few. When you look at it, the only premium park, when I say premium park, is parks that have got high traffic and you are paying things like $80 and above. It's only Lake Nakuru. And Lake Nakuru has had its share of problems. When you look at Masai Mara, it is not under them.
Yeah.
I wish it was under them because KWS Rangers and KWS team are very good when it comes to wildlife management. But when it comes to the entrepreneurial side, when it comes to logistics, I mean balancing and running a proper biodiversity and ecosystem. For instance, water ponds, a very simple example. I run a private sanctuary now in Savo ecosystem, 28,000 acres. We have close to 23 private conservancies in Savo. When you look at that, we can be as good as any other conservancies around Mara or wherever around the world. Now, it is not cheap. It is not easy to maintain these things. When you look at Savo, for instance, water ponds, most of them have dried up. Road network, like for instance, Savo West, we have a huge problem. You can't drive yourself from, let's say, Titondei Gate all the way, let's say, to Ziwani or Maktau side. The road network is bad.
Yep.
But if a private sector guy came in, they will put money and whatever into it. And this is where the landlord KWS says, you know what, if you don't fix this road, you guys will be in trouble. The problem is accountability, and problem is to make sure that you attract as much funding as possible. Look at Dr. Richard Leakey when he was running KWS at that time. There was a lot of goodwill. A lot of people came in, and in fact, a lot of philanthropists decided to support KWS then because there was no funding from the government. If we are able to get that through other bodies, why will anybody have a quarrel with that? And people are saying, I've seen also comments being made, you privatize, you're going to increase poaching. That is not true. You tell me how much poaching happens in Lewa Conservancy. How much poaching?
People will
happens
tell you
in
they
Mombasa?
don't know because it's private property.
No. KWS have a right to go to any sanctuary at any time. Because even myself, I run a sanctuary, but KWS can come in there without notice at any time and do an audit, do anything they want to do. And I'll tell you for free, those guys are doing a pretty good job. Kenyans, the biggest problem we have is the issue of rest. A lot of people will say this Muzungu, that Muzungu.
Yep.
I try as much as possible to avoid having a conversation where I have to talk about rest. I don't think it's the right thing to do, and I'll speak about, for instance, Northern Rangelands. I come from Marsabit. Northern Rangelands, they've got 37 conservancies. Some of these places are completely dead 10 years ago, but today they're all being revived. Where there was no wildlife is being reintroduced. Why will anybody have a quarrel with that? And when you talk about Northern Rangelands, we have the entire Northeastern province. Let me tell you this. Because we have not managed the land well in Northeastern, the cattle from Northeastern are finding their way here in Savo. And I always tell them this. You've been able to clear the whole of Northeastern of any fodder, and now you're coming to Savo. Savo is nothing to you. You will clear it within weeks. The thing is about proper rangeland management, and that is what we lack. And who can do it? Obviously, it's private sector who can do it. And why would anybody have quarrel with that? And I think the people who always talk about, Muzungu this, Muzungu that, I think we need to remove that racial lens. We need to start asking ourselves, what is the end game? What is the result? Let people show us the results. Northern Rangelands are showing you the results. And we have many other places that are not under Northern Rangelands. If you're so good and you are proper Miro like myself and you think you want to do something, why don't you go and do it? But it's very easy, Eric, to criticize when somebody is doing something.
To pass it all along. I think it's a lack of information as well. Let's take a break at this point, Mohammed. And then we also want to open up this conversation so that we hear from all our audience from around the world on what they think about this particular proposal. This is talking about bringing the private sector into the management or the operations of the national parks and game reserves in the country. Is this a good idea? Is it not a good idea? We're having a conversation with Mohammed Hersi, chairman of the Kenya Tourism Federation, and this is off the back of what Tourism CS Najib Balala proposed last week. He said, among the things that is being considered, lessons coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic are how better to manage this national resource that we have. 27 minutes to 8, jobs.standardmedia.co.ke. Have you visited that today? Revenue Assurance Assistant Manager, Equity Bank is looking for that. CBM Global is looking for Fundraising and Communications Manager. Senior Solutions Architects by Equity Bank Kenya. A Commission on Revenue Allocation is looking for Business Application Software Developer. Commission on Revenue Allocation is also looking for Manager Communications. It's also looking for Manager Transitional Equalization. Transitional Equalization. It's also looking for Director Research and Knowledge Management. These and very many other jobs that have been advertised on jobs.standardmedia.co.ke. Go check them out and you can subscribe to get job alerts whenever a job that's relevant to you is advertised. Good morning.
"24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
24 teams, 12 host cities, 6 groups, all battling for one trophy. The long-awaited Euro 2020 is here at last upon us. The fans might not be within touching distance.
Good cross, Giroud attacks it and scores, and France are ahead.
But the atmosphere will only get to a fever pitch. From the 11th of June to the 11th of July, catch the tackles, the goals, and all your favorite football stars as the elite European nations go head-to-head. The Standard Group brings you the UEFA Euro 2020 tournament live across our channel.
Oh, what a wonderful goal!
Sports as the official UEFA Euro 2020 free-to-air broadcast partner in Kenya, because we live for the game. And that's why at Standard Group, sports lives here.
Hello.
Halo, umesikia?
Nimesikia nini?
Hujasikia habari? Hebu acha nikuambie. Kile kimetokea.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Don't wait for hearsay. Dial *550*1# to read the Standard e-paper from the convenience of your mobile phone for only 20 shillings from your telecom line, and stay up to date for a reliable source with over 100 years of experience with no additional data charges.
"24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
For many of us, home is a place where we find our inner peace. A place where we find the most comfort. A place where we recharge. A place where we create laughter and all the good memories. But most importantly, a place where we all belong. At KTN Home, we believe there is something for everyone. So catch all the comedy, telenovelas, Nollywood, music, sporting action, kids shows, documentaries, movies, dramas and reality shows, all to make you and your family feel right at home. You can also stream live at www.standardmedia.co.ke/KTN Home/live on your
morning at 18 degrees, highs of 24 and lows of 14 today. High chance of rain early this morning. It's 16 degrees and mostly cloudy in Nyeri at going to highs of 23 today, coming down to lows of 13. Sunny conditions in Nakuru. 15, highs of 24, lows of 14. 24 will be the high in Eldoret, where it's mostly sunny at 15. We're looking at partly sunny conditions in Kisumu at 20, highs of 27. And it's partly sunny in Kakamega at 20. 26 will be the high and lows of 16. It'll go to highs of 31 today in Mombasa, where it's already raining at 25, and 28 and sunny conditions in Malindi, highs of 30 and lows of 26. It's raining in Kampala with highs of 25 and lows of 18. We're looking into a Dar es Salaam day of sunny conditions and highs of 30 and lows of 22. It's 11 degrees and clear in Johannesburg, highs of 21 and lows of 9. 33 will be the high recorded in Lagos today, where it's raining at 26. Mostly cloudy conditions in Kinshasa, 25, highs of 32 and lows of 24.
Spice up your life.
Muthaiga to town, bumper to bumper. I think this one is now bumper on bumper because, I mean, it's crazy. As you're trying to get into the city centre, coming from Muthaiga, it's not happening, guys. Right at the Muthaiga Square, trying to join with the Pangani underpass is going to take a while today. There's mad traffic everywhere you look, guys. In outbound on Mombasa Road today, in and outbound on Thika Road. Coming off Langata Road, it started to build up right around the barracks. Hopefully it doesn't tail back as far back as it did yesterday, but we're going to have to take a look and see. Wait and see how this opens up. We're looking at traffic that's coming from Runda on into Limuru Road today, very slow as you patch the village market, going then towards the Aga Khan Hospital. Use Wangari Maathai Road to get into the city centre. If you stick going towards Ngari, you're going to get stuck there at least for some time. So the traffic situation is not looking really pretty this morning, but we hope it does get a little bit better as the minutes tick by. Are you stuck somewhere? Have you found a good route? Why don't you let us know on SpiceFMKE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings
20
done
minutes
right.
to 8 o'clock.
94.4 Spice
here.
FM,
We have with us
Nairobi.
on the line Mohammed Hersi, chairman of the Kenya Tourism Federation, talking about a plan that was just mentioned in passing by Cabinet Secretary in charge of Tourism and Wildlife, Najib Balala, saying, let us bring in the private sector to have a bigger role to play in the management of our natural resources that have been classified as national parks and national reserves. How many national parks do we have? 21. We were at pains trying to name 5 of the 21. If you go to any person around the country, you will actually find we are scoring above average. Many do not know. So we have them. It's a natural resource. It's been there since before we were born, and we don't know about them. If we talk about the national reserves, apart from the obvious one, there's Mwingi Game Reserve. Did you know about that one? Nasolot National Reserve, Kakamega Forest, Bisanadi National Reserve, Shimba Hills, Mwea National Reserve, and many others. Think about all this. Are we maximizing this natural resource? Mohammed Hersi says, if we look at it that way, if we can say we bring in the private sector and don't talk of privatization, Mohammed Hersi says he'd prefer to use the word commercialization. Bring in the private sector to play a role. The KWS still maintains the role of regulator and maintains the role of the overall conservator of our natural resources.
What would it look like, this commercialization, Mohammed?
That is
if
what
you
we
give
want
a
here.
tangible example of what this commercialization would look like, maybe that would put to bed some of these,
The concerns and the fears.
concerns that folks might have.
Mohammed, before you answer that, let's hear from Jimmy. Jimmy is calling in from Malindi and he'd like to jump in on this conversation. Good morning, Jimmy.
Good morning, too.
How are you today?
We thank God we are fine.
Very good.
Yes, and a little bit shocked.
Why?
How would someone talk about privatization of government, of we, the citizens' property, being privatized in this time of the year and time of in this era? What we should be talking about is all those government parastatals or all those government bodies that have been privatized are supposed to be taken back by the government.
So we nationalize everything.
Everything must be nationalized because this privatization is the main source of corruption and it's the main source of people not doing their work. People who have been, a leader has been elected, you're a president. You will manage the country. You put a system that will manage the country. Then the system that is supposed to manage the country and its activities starts to fail and start to ask for other people to come in and help them to the cost of the citizen.
If I ask you,
Because
Jimmy, if we focus on tourism,
yes,
what are your fears with the privatization or commercialization of national parks and game reserves?
I think first let me go back to the point that let's use privatization because commercialization, it is just another tricky word that is hiding the name privatization. Because in their conscience, they know privatization, it is not right. So the only way they can do is to use a certain word that is a bit adaptive, commercialization. No. Privatization of any tourism is a backbone, is one of the backbone of this country's economy. We, the citizen of Kenya, it is very hard for us even to afford domestic tourism.
Why?
Costs, taxation, and the economical hardship. It is hard. Not all Kenyans afford to get some money to go and visit somewhere. So the moment that this sector becomes privatized, it means that the cost will be more. And we will be limited as citizens. Our rights to go and have fun, and it will remain for the people with the dollars and the euros who will be affording to go into these places.
Okay, Jimmy,
Second,
I hear you saying that what this means is that the money that would come out from the management of such would go to the pockets of a few and that Kenyans would not enjoy it?
that is one of the things. We know that every time the money coming out from somewhere is taken to people's pockets, and that's why we say that that's why we say that this sector is failing. And when we say this sector is failing, then they say let's privatize. When it's privatized, then they continue now getting a bigger share into their pocket. Reason: the people that have visited these places, Kenya is capable of managing its own tourism sector without privatizing it.
Okay.
Because a lot of people are coming in here. We are getting revenue from tourism. That money that is got from tourism, it is enough. Now that we have COVID, tourism has a little bit gone down. But this should not be a reason for us to sell our game parks to private people. Let me tell you, we had the coffee plantations and the tea plantations. And in Kiambu, you will see that the coffee plantation, after a little bit of privatization here and there, they are now being turned into real estate.
But they're always private.
Actually, Jimmy, they're always private because they are owned by individuals.
But Jimmy, let's hear a response from Mohammed, who is still on the line. Mohammed, how would you respond to this? You can hear the concern that Jimmy has. Jimmy has a concern on privatize means you're taking it further and further away from the citizens, further and further away from the citizens being able to afford to enjoy their own natural resource.
Okay. Thank you, Eric, and good to hear from Jimmy in Malindi. He's raised a very fundamental issue, and I hear where he's coming from. It's unfortunate, and it is at the end of the day. I'm not in government at the end of the day, but government have a long way to go in terms of building trust. The trust levels from the citizenry, unfortunately, is very low. And you can clearly see how people are reacting and everyone is saying. I wish to comment on the issue of affordability and making sure that Kenyans are not locked out of these key places. For instance, Jimmy says that it's going to be very expensive if we privatize or, as I said, commercialize. And I'll give an example of existing places. When you look at a place like let me take the example of Lewa Conservancy. Lewa Conservancy are charging just on and about 11,000 shillings for non-residents a night, $110. For a Kenyan, they're charging on and about $24, which is 20% of what the international traveler will pay. Okay? When you look at a place like Old Pejeta, which is another conservancy, remember all wildlife at the end of the day belong to the government of Kenya. I may have animals in my sanctuary, but it belongs to KWS, and they can come in any time to check on them and to check on how I am doing my business. When you look at Old Pejeta, while the international traveler will pay on about $60 or $65, the local is paying only $9. This is private, entity. My own conservancy in Taita Hills Wildlife Sanctuary is private, but I'm actually charging lower than even what KWS is charging. I'm charging 350 shillings, $3 for the local. It can even buy you coffee at Java. And the international traveler, I'm charging them $40, which is 4,000 shillings.
This is just park entry fees.
Park entry fees, yes.
Okay.
So I'm giving you tangible examples, including one where I'm running it. So this fear that anybody coming in will smoke out Kenyans with pricing. And by the way, whether you partialize, commercialize, privatize, is not necessarily an international player will come in. But for me, the bottom line is this. If something can be made to work better, I honestly don't care whether somebody from Siberia, whether somebody from Kilifi, whether somebody from Seattle came to run it, as long as it is working. Recall Safaricom, I'll give you a good example. When the late Bob Collymore was brought to town, we were very unhappy and we said, why this man? We have got other Kenyans who can do it. And today, Kenyans are saying he's one of the best CEOs Kenya has ever had. So for me, there's no quarrel with success as long as something is being delivered and we're getting world-class delivery. But I also feel Kenyans, there's a lot of trust levels that is not in my hands.
And
It's
lack
upon government
of
Kenya.
information as well.
Mr. Erisi, let me ask you this question.
By the way,
Yes.
opaque, by the way, lack of information is a big problem because when you do not share information, then it becomes an issue. But in this case, nothing has been decided in terms of the this move by CS Balala. It's just a proposal yet. It has not gone anywhere. It has got a long way to go. It's something we need to, this is a conversation we need to have, and we need to dissect it fully so that we say, you know what, we are happy with this, we are not happy with this. This needs to change, this can be retained, etc. Yeah. That's how I would like to comment.
Mr. Herisi, thank you. You are, as always, very informative and very detailed. We thank you. The issue of cost, I have to wade in here and say that when you talk about 350 shillings, it is out of the reach of most Kenyans. Because you are talking about an amount that some people earn per day. And even if they earn slightly more, say 500 shillings, a visit to the game park becomes a luxury that they actually cannot possibly afford, especially if they're locals. What I'm saying is this. Even as we talk about wildlife management, conservation, and everything that's around it, Kenya is full of many success stories. Rhino Ark is a huge success story, but despite it being a success story, whatever Colin Church and his team did, those who neighbor that game park still have issues, meaning there will always be issues, but there has to be a platform for resolving the issues. Now, what is wrong, and I'm agreeing with you here, with taking examples of things that have worked, partnerships. You call it commercialization, I would rather call it partnerships. Because if the people who live in the environs of the animals, within the environments that we find these animals, do not see or do not understand or cannot enjoy any benefits from these animals, then that entire process, everything that we're discussing, becomes nullified or it becomes obfuscated in a lot of politics. Now, you are in this sector. You are a strong lobby. You're not a weak lobby. And you have somebody who actually is a minister who worked in this sector and understands it well. The debate that we are now starting and what we are talking about is something that should be taken into account. And all these issues that, especially the thorny ones that have been there for the longest time, the debate about animals versus human habitation, the debate about those who live within the environment, all these issues, so long as one does not see them being addressed directly, even if you bring in a new issue that is as profitable and as well-meaning as privatization, it will be fought.
Mohammed.
Yeah.
Your comment on that?
You know, I missed out the last bit. If you could, Muga, if you could just go back to the last bit.
All right. The part where I was singing or the part I was just talking?
When you talk,
the last part.
What I'm saying is this. There are issues that communities who live around and about where animals are found, the issues that they have raised.
Okay, I got you.
Yes, and there are other issues that have to do with issues of cost, what have you. And for the longest time, they haven't been fully addressed. I think since you've got me, I'll let you respond.
Okay, great. Number one, I'd like to say this. When it comes to communities that host these animals, you talk about conservationists. And let me say, whether they are local, whether they're international, they found the communities actually hosting these animals. They live together. You know, some people grew up seeing buffaloes, elephants, giraffes right in where they live.
Yep.
Yes.
Whether it is Masai Mara, whether it is Savo, whether it is in my home in northern Kenya in Shaba or Marsabit, whatever. I grew up seeing the elephant Ahmad crossing our primary school, going to the forest.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a relationship with these animals. Now, the biggest problem in Kenya is the human-wildlife conflict. And the late Madai clearly said resources, and especially water and pasture, as it continues to diminish, animals are being forced to look for water and pasture in far places. They have to walk longer distances to get access to this. Then you end up with what is called human-wildlife conflict. And this is where I personally have a lot of problem with this. And I've also expressed these sentiments to even the CFs and to the ministry and even other ministers before CS Balala, that we've said it, look here, human-wildlife compensation must be fast-tracked. Why will anybody hold on to compensation for 5 years when somebody has lost a loved one or somebody has lost their only source of livelihood? A leopard can get into your shed and kill 30 of your mbusis. We have that. And this is where I come from. This is what I'm saying. If something like that happened today, let's say on the outskirts of Nairobi, a lion went into a cow shed and killed 20 cattle or whatever. Do the math quickly, and within a week, compensate this harder.
Mohammed, I've got to come and ask you really quickly. If you were to give one example of an area that would actually work with this commercialization that you talk about, one thing that could be done, that could be able to allay the fears and concerns of folks when it comes to this commercialization, what would it be for us to see how that would work?
I think for me, everything is anchored on governance. And that is one area where, unfortunately, government entities have failed when it comes to governance and using the limited resources in a proper way. You tell me, why are private conservancies roads all in good condition? Why are water pans that is supposed to help animals in dry season, why are they working and they're not working in government-run institutions? Government-run parks. Ask yourself. Those are the issues that we need to. It's an issue of governance and making sure that the resources that are limited are allocated to the right chores. Yes, and for me, once you address that, everything else will fall into place. And Jimmy on the other side talked about corruption and all the bad practices. It is there. So KWS, they've done great job. Yes. Is there room for improvement? Absolutely yes. But at the end of the day, we have good guys, but at the same time also we have a lot of deadwoods who need to be sent home. It's a fact, just like any institution.
That's true. Mohammed, thank you very much for joining us this morning. This is a conversation that obviously has just begun. It's going to gather momentum as days go by. We'll reach out to you once again.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Thanks, Mohammed.
Well, it's not an easy one. If you look at it from an emotional point of view, you hear privatization. Like Mohammed was saying, it's about trust. Now you have gone to our only remaining thing, the national park. Surely. How much is your greed? It's the first thing that comes to very many people's minds. And then you start thinking, privatization, people will think the conservancies that they've seen, people will see the bigger conservancies which are not run by people of their own skin color. And they think, now it's another way of locking us out of enjoying our own natural resource. A lot of communication needs to happen here.
Absolutely.
And it can't just be reactionary. The Ministry of Tourism has got, and KTB and the other sector players have got to take a leading role in this, in making people see the other side of what conservation means to our life.
If communicating it and actually explaining some of these things, it would make sense to a lot of folks who would probably initially shut it down.
That's very true. Keep it right here. We move to another conversation in the next hour. We will be talking about the East Africa Agribusiness Buyer-Seller Platform. Now, think about what comes to mind when we say that. East Africa Agribusiness Buyer-Seller Platform. What do you understand? Okay, we'll be asking that question to Dr. Kevin Desai, who is the Principal Secretary in the State Department for East Africa Cooperation, and Dr. Bimal Kantaria, who is the Chairman of the Agriculture Sector Network, which is within the Kenya Private Sector Alliance. We'll be talking about agribusiness, AgriTalk, where we discuss food security, where we talk about agribusiness, where we talk about everything that is aligned to agriculture in this country. So those two gentlemen are joining us shortly via video link, and this is the conversation we'll be having. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. It's now 8 a.m.
around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning, this is the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga. ODM leader Raila Odinga says what was witnessed in the Bonchari and Juja by-elections is an abuse of police powers and an arrogant display of impunity. Raila says security forces exist to serve the people and not the interests of those out to conduct political experiments. He further said that the peaceful coexistence post-2018 must not be taken for granted by individuals wanting to confuse the handshake for an excuse to erode our hard-earned liberties. This comes as ODM's Pavel Oimeke led in the Bonchari by-elections with 8,049 votes. In Ruri ward by-election, UDA candidate Francis Muraya took the lead after he garnered 4,303 votes. Elsewhere in the Juja by-elections, tallying is yet to resume. However, if there are no further interruptions in the census process, the winner is likely to be declared late in the afternoon. Only 16 out of 184 polling stations had reported results when the census was cancelled last night. IBC Chair Wafula Chebukati this morning visited the Mangu High School to get a brief of what happened. The counting of votes was halted after the audit area at Mangu High School was raided by several people, led by Kiambu Governor James Nyoro. According to Chebukati, the raid made it difficult to continue the operation. Sadly, a prison police officer in Kitui County has killed his wife and son by shooting them following unknown reasons. White Assistant Chief Joseph Ndunge says the officer left work last evening and when he entered his house, he shot his wife and his one-year-old child, but another child who is said to be older survived as he escaped and hid. The bodies of the two have been transferred to Kitui Mortuary for further investigations. Tourism CS Najib Balala has denied allegations that there are plans to privatize wildlife parks. Balala says the allegations that he has plans were misleading. He explained that the plan is to find ways to ensure that all parks are well managed, as there are currently 7 parks out of 58 that benefit the country.
We don't build lodges, we don't build restaurants ourselves, no. We concession out those facilities, and those facilities need to be done by private sector. So why not? But also if there's a partner, for example, we have 58 national reserves and parks. The ones that generate money for us are only 6 to 7 of them.
The selection panel for appointment of commissioners to the IBC has received over 700 applications for the 4 vacant positions in the electoral agency. Panel's chairperson Elizabeth Muli says they'll publish all the applicants' names next week before it embarks on shortlisting. The panel advertised for the positions through a gazette notice dated May 1st, and interested applicants had up to May 17th to apply. And in sports, Chelsea beat Leicester City to boost their Champions League hopes and leave the Foxes in danger of missing out. Just 3 days after Leicester beat Chelsea 1-0 in the FA Cup final, Chelsea got some measure of revenge to win thanks to Antonio Rodriguez and Jorginho goals in front of 8,000 fans. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
All right, so we are looking at heavy traffic on Mombasa Road this morning, outbound. It's not too terrible, though, or not as bad as what we had seen in previous cases. Langata Road is where we'll see a mess today. It's very slow as it's coming towards town. A lot of folks already calling it a parking lot, unfortunately, from the turnoff at Bomas and then headed out towards the barracks and then towards the roundabout at Timor. It's very so. There's some construction going on there as well. You can turn on to Bagathi Way and then out towards the city centre therefrom. Shouldn't be too bad after that, but it's bumper to bumper in most parts of Langata Road. All right, so we're also looking at traffic incoming from Thika Road into the CBD. It is slow. Another road that's giving us some problems today is Limuru Road. Very, very heavy traffic coming out from Runda through the village market out towards Aga Khan Hospital. If you're going into the city, go Wangari Maathai, so then you can go towards Westland that way if you don't turn off at the turning towards Peponi. Okay, so that's what it looks like now. Let's talk in a bit. SpiceFM KE on Twitter, text on 40127. Let's get it moving this morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
5 minutes, coming up to 6 minutes after 8. Kenya's biggest conversation gets into the third hour. Thank you very much for tuning in this morning, this lovely Wednesday morning, the 19th day of May, 2021. We are always happy when you're able to join us. Welcome to our audience on KTN Home, who are joining us now for the next 1 hour. This is your radio experience on TV. We always begin with the day's proverb from C.T. Muga.
A snake that you can see does not bite.
A snake that you can see does not bite.
Yes.
All right. Or should not. If it bites you, then it's too fast or you're too slow.
Well, this is a proverb, and we're looking at it as a proverb. We're not looking at it as a news item. and what would catch the attention of the reader or the listener, because as we all know, it begins with dog bites man, not interesting. Man bites dog, interesting. Same with snake. This is not one of those. No, it's just proverb, snake, bite you sometimes, injures you, sometimes you die. That's what we're talking
Sometimes you die.
Yes, sometimes
you die.
Yes.
Okay. So let's have a conversation on agribusiness, agri-talk. And this morning we are joined once again by Dr. Bimal Kantaria, who's the chairman of the Agriculture Sector Network at the Kenya Private Sector Alliance and the principal secretary for the State Department of East African Community in the Ministry of East African Community and Regional Development, Dr. Kevit Desai. Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
Very well, thank you, and we are glad to have you. Welcome to the Situation Room. I'm going to start with you, Dr. Kevit Desai, Principal Secretary. You're not able to join us on video. You are on the road. Where are you this morning?
I'm actually waiting to enter a meeting with the Committee on Finance after this call.
Okay. At Parliament.
I'm in the parking lot, yes. That's correct, yes.
All right. All the best as you speak to our representatives. Promise to answer all questions truthfully. Dr. Kantaria, good to see you again. This is another time that we're having you on the show. Always interesting to have you. Asante sana for joining us.
No, thank you very much indeed, and I'm really happy to be back. Thank you.
Now, we want to have a conversation on the agribusiness buyer-seller platform, the East African agribusiness buyer-seller platform, right off the bat. What is this, Dr. Kantaria?
So, this is an interesting way of using technology. The Agribusiness Confederation of East Africa was formed about a year ago, and it's the umbrella body of all private sector organizations in agriculture across East Africa. Again, a very new thing for us. But it can only be done with technology. So we're using it with Zoom, and we connected Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi onto one platform. And the idea is to connect farmers with end users in Kenya. So we're using Facebook as a technology medium, but it's something completely new. It's quite exciting how we're using all this new stuff to bring farmers and customers together.
So what do? They farmers and all, they get on board onto one platform, let's say Facebook, and then?
Yeah, so this is it's quite popular in Kenya. There's lots of Facebook pages for farmers in Kenya. It's really big. Some of them have got a couple of million farmers on it. So we thought, why don't we extend it throughout the region? So if you're a farmer in, let's say, Uganda, and you want to sell your produce to Kenya, so we've got the Kenya Association of Manufacturers involved. They will post, let's say, we want maize or we want tomatoes. And in return, the farmer in Uganda will say, I have got tomatoes, whatever. And we try to link buyer-seller. It's already happening, but it's happening through brokers. So we're trying to cut out the middleman and say, can the farmer deal directly with the end user? Is it the supermarket or is it the manufacturer who knows the source of his produce? And the farmer gets a better price because he's dealing directly with his end user.
Are you suggesting that the existence of the broker has a negative effect in this particular sector?
To an extent, although of course businessmen are businessmen, and we in this country we encourage that because it's linking, or else they help with logistics and all that. So I think we have a very good business community in this country. Brokers is again, it has negative connotations, but these guys link obviously farmers with and they bring it across the borders and stuff. But what we've realized is that maybe some of these businessmen may not be paying fair prices to farmers, and in return maybe overcharging the end users. So if we can find a way of bridging that gap, so there's more transparency in the system, then the businessman can perhaps transport the goods through the borders and all that. But I think there's a role for everybody to play. There's a win-win for everybody in this, and everybody will benefit by, and of course the key in all this is everybody makes profit, and that's what we are trying to encourage.
Are we saying that currently there's no flow then in terms of information and communication between sellers, growers, and buyers right now? Or that it needs to be ramped up a lot more in the way in which it is happening at the moment?
So when we started ASEA, where I'm the current chairman, one of the things we quickly realized when we talked to the leaders in Tanzania and Uganda is they know that all their produce is being consumed in Kenya. Kenya is the biggest consumer of fresh produce in the region, but they just didn't know who is consuming it, which manufacturer is using it for tomato paste, or which farmer is using it for their potato crisps and things like that. They know it's ending up in Kenya. They just know where it was. So by us using using technology, and you won't believe how clever farmers are these days. They're all high tech. The farmers groups on Facebook are huge. So I think just bridging the information gap will help everybody. It's something new. I'm not saying it'll be 100%, but it's going to be quite interesting to see how effective this thing is. And we're launching it this afternoon.
But appears if we talk about agriculture and the trade between the East African countries, how would we rate in terms of how much are we selling, how much we are bringing in, and in terms of communication, then flow of communication between the traders in the East African community countries? But appears.
This is a very important industry indeed. It's within the East African community, it contributes almost up to 48% of GDP with respect to member countries. If we're looking at Kenya, for example, our ability to not only grow but also produce and process fruits and juices for export. I mean, if we look at countries like Netherlands and so on, they utilize 28.1% of our exports. If we look towards Uganda, Uganda is the largest producer of fresh fruits and vegetables within EAC, and with it, the production in Uganda is in the hands of smallholder farmers. Even with respect to Burundi, which are the three partner states which are within this platform, we see that the overall growth has grown by 94.4% between 2016 and 2018, and with a total, worth of $313,000 worth of fruit juice development, which signifies that, that increasingly, on one hand, this is a key sector, but its potential for growth is there and can be further accelerated through such platforms and a systematic approach towards addressing an interactive intercommunication system.
Would we say then that lack of seamless communication between the various actors in the value chain is coming up as a concern? Even is something that you've noticed at government level?
Yes, indeed. I think that this is where the crux is. Indeed, that thought is something that we need to dive much deeper into. What we appreciate from our existing position is that we barely trade with respect to intra-trade up to some 15% between East African partner states. Now, this is a huge lost opportunity because of the overall potential for increasing markets between partner states. If we look at agriculture specifically, the existing trade by MSMEs is 20%. The trade in manufactured exports of fruits and vegetables is at 5%. So this just indicates that there's a challenge with respect to value chains. And if we look at value chains from a systematic perspective, then communications is an important element. Coordination is an important element. The infrastructure we have not done too badly on, because each of the partner states have invested heavily on roads, ports, and air systems, etc., and so on, although the cost and time taken for transport is still very high in comparison to international standards. But if we look at the policy environment, the market systems, the regulations, these are also being developed together with the standards, issues with respect to phytosanitary standards and other key capacities. But the key hinge is actually communications and our ability to be more interactive so as to promote a nexus between the farmer, the productive sector, and the public sector, by way of ensuring that we create that ecosystem that promotes transformation. So while this promotes a link between farmers, buyers, and sellers, it has major implications on how it actually informs regional systems, which are striving to see how we're able to leverage from the fact that we are an economic bloc and we have 150 million people and we're growing into several other countries. And what are we doing about markets collectively as all stakeholders?
So this is being considered when you talk about communication and technology. So this platform, with what we see, it goes beyond just sellers and farmers and the availability of product and then the market that's available, buyers. It goes beyond that. There's so much more then that needs to be done to make sure that my product is reaching a buyer and that I, as a buyer, then can actually make a purchase. So would you say that the details around this is what needs to be worked on much more than the availability of buyers and sellers currently? And I think that's for both of you.
Yes, well, that is also absolutely true. And we need to recognize that we need to build this ecosystem. It cannot just be done and be expected to be there. And, the starting point is to look at the demand and work backwards so that not only the supply is to standards. Like, for example, to illustrate this further, if you're importing maize into Kenya with respect to further production and export capabilities, it has to meet certain phytosanitary standards. And those standards need to be consistently designed, developed, and implemented. And therefore, such platforms are the beginning of how we actually even look into further development of how the cooperation between public sector implementation of policy and standards and the private sector development and aggregation takes place. And we are therefore able to then, influence all the way from farm gate to factory certain processes. So we as government see this as a much bigger opportunity, and especially when the private sector starts working in close collaboration with the public sector so that we're able to promote the necessary alignment and relevance, but at the same time promote an enabling environment for the productive sector and the farmers and so on to play a role of self-regulation and capacity development towards that common end. EAC's vision is clearly that, that we are working as a bloc. It's there to further aggregate and further promote the development of agriculture for export purposes, as well as our own food security requirements. But within the context of exports, we need to meet huge steps as far as standards and capacity and capability is concerned. And this can only be done on a volume basis, which enables a value proposition for both the private sector and the public sector to invest in. And so this ecosystem that we're talking about is critical. And, the first step, of course, is to imagine how a farmer in Tanzania is growing maize, or in Burundi, for example, growing coffee, is able to communicate to the market efficiently. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in Burundi, but it can be in Kenya through this platform.
Dr. Desai, you've put it really well. I like the manner in which you've laid out your facts step by step. But even as we speak, we do have a sector that has actually achieved this very thing that you're saying, the tea sector. They, for the longest time, have been self-regulating. And all the countries around East and Central Africa who actually are involved in the production of tea get together and they conduct their business in an extremely profitable manner for themselves as well as for the government. Now, are we saying that with this platform that you're creating, that you envision creating something similar so that our agricultural produce can enjoy the economies of scale that come and the profitability that also comes with that unity in strength and numbers?
Yes, indeed. I think that you've touched on the example that we're looking at. The tea sector indeed is one of the most important examples that one can cite, one of the most successful. But then again, if we look at it, it's been constructed over 100 years ago, from the involvement of different countries to the export processing capacities in Mombasa and all the way into international markets. But if we even look at coffee, for example, the potential that it has as far as exporting to by almost 34% to African countries and around 3 to 4% abroad, is an example of such value chains that are interdependent, that promote standards, and as commodities, they're able to move extensively. And within that context, the government of Kenya has played significant roles in improving port facilitation and attestation fees and verification systems in order to keep ensuring that commodities like this keep being exported efficiently with great productivity. But what you touch on is essentially what we need to amplify manyfold into different sectors like livestock, food crops, cash crops, fishing, aquaculture, cassava, beans, bananas, potatoes, rice, maize, and all of these sectors which have similar potential, dairy production, fisheries, poultry, that need to essentially create those links and create those systems similar to that tea sector that you gave an example of. And I think that what we're seeing in the tea sector is an example of what could be achieved in other sectors by value promotion and alternative market opportunities for farmers. But it'll also consolidate the small-scale farmers. And what is absolutely important for the East African community is the backward and forward linkages. Agriculture promotes this at the highest level like no other sector. And therefore, the emphasis here, in trying to see how we design the systems around our unique situations of small-scale farmers. Like if you look at the maize value chain, it's small farmers who put everything together and put it onto a truck and then turn up to Namanga and subsequently into a factory in Nairobi. But how do we create this? Not look at it as fragmented, but integrate it through communication systems, because we're not likely to integrate so many farm systems at one go. But the possibility of communications and technology being a driver of being interactive, open, and transparent can, in a certain way, promote that linkage. And especially when it comes from the private sector itself, it's even more able to demonstrate reform and development.
Indeed. Dr. Kevin Desai, Principal Secretary, State Department for East African Community. We thank you very much for joining us this morning. Yes, you are just waiting to get into a meeting with the Committee of the National Assembly. All the best with that, and thank you for the contributions that you've made with us today.
Thank you.
And also we have Dr. Bimal Kantaria, who is the chairman of the Agriculture Sector Network within the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, talking about this agribusiness buyer-seller platform, which is part of the Agribusiness Confederation of East Africa. Dr. Kantaria, you can stay on the line for a while, then we'll talk to you after this break. So you can tell us more about this platform. There are very many questions that we'd like to get from you in terms of the platform and what the platform is all about, how people who are listening in can then join the platform and see how they can trade better with their colleagues within the East African community. Kenya's biggest conversation continues at 25 minutes after 8. We are live on KTN Home on SpiceFM, and we are live streaming the show online. GenerationNextChallenge.com. This is a portal that we've told you about many times where you can get your children to get to practice and understand better math, connecting math to real life, understanding computational skills, science, robotics. And once you got onto GenerationNextChallenge.com, register your child, and then they'll take part in the Kenya National Challenge. They will get to earn points. As they earn points, they graduate and are able to participate in an international challenge. All in all, the entire point of all this is just to get your children to have a better understanding and connection of math in real life. GenerationNextChallenge.com. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Hello.
Halo, umesikia?
Nimesikia nini?
Hujasikia habari? Hebu wacha nikuambie. Kile kimetokea.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Don't wait for hearsay. Dial star 550 star 2 hash to read the Nairobian e-paper from the convenience of your mobile phone for only 20 shillings from your telecom line and stay up to date. The hottest talk of town with no additional charges.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. Spice FM.
It's getting hot in here.
Oh, everybody steals. It's better a thief who brings something small back. And I say to myself, there's no better thief. A thief is a thief, period.
All those bribes, how much they're getting per year, how much inconvenience they're causing. As much as you call it a small case, it's worth it to be convicted.
The truth is, we are a tribal nation. Because if we were not tribal, and I want to go back to this, you cannot continue walking around with a mug which is clean outside and it's rotten inside.
We have become a fuliza country. We have mortgaged our country because of debt.
You've got one chef working and the assistant chef wakati anatakana koroge unga nini hayuko.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. The weather with Spice FM.
It's cloudy in Nairobi at 19 degrees, highs of 24 and lows of 14 today. Mostly cloudy conditions in Nyeri at 17, highs of 23 and lows of 13. 14 will be the low in Nakuru where it's sunny at 17. It'll go to highs of 24. Mostly cloudy conditions in Eldoret, highs of 24 today and lows of 13. We'll see highs of 27 in Kisumu. It's partly sunny at 21. But partly sunny conditions in Kakamega at 22, highs of 26. Highs of 31 in Mombasa where it's raining at 26 and it's sunny in Malindi at 28. Highs of 30 and lows of 26. 25 the high in Kampala today where it's raining at 21. Mostly sunny conditions in Dar es Salaam at 25. See highs of 30 and lows of 22. It's sunny in Johannesburg at 10. It'll come down to lows of 9 with highs of 21. 33 the high in Lagos. It's raining at 26. Partly sunny conditions in Kinshasa at 23. Highs of 32. Coming down to lows of 24.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM.
Okay, Uthiru towards Kangemi flowing really well since this morning, not too much of an issue. Langata Road, however, traffic heading to town starts at KWS. It slows down right around the junction coming from Ongata Rongai, and that is the thing. Mombasa Road, with the construction and everything going on, it is moving quite slowly today, in and outbound, but not too crazy. Don home to Makadara is not moving. Folks are stuck on that road and trying to get out towards Jogo Road and then towards Landis. Folks are stuck. It's a bumper to bumper. It's also looking crazy again coming on Limuru Road into the city. So it's morning traffic. It is traffic hour. We're going to have to sit through this one, see how it opens up in a short while, okay? SpiceFMKE on Twitter. That's how you can get in touch. Text on 40127.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
This conversation continues. We thank you very much for tuning in wherever you are. We're having a conversation about the East African community, about taking advantage of the fact that Kenya is the biggest consumer of agriculture goods from the region. And we trade very well because we bring them in, we process, we send them out again as our exports to the same region. And the East African Agribusiness Confederation, the Agribusiness Confederation of East Africa, where the chair is Dr. Bimal Kantaria, who is with the Kenya Private Sector Alliance as well. They'll be doing a launch this afternoon of the Agribusiness Buyer-Seller platform. Just before we went to the break, we were having a conversation with him and Dr. Kevin Desai, who is the Principal Secretary for East African Community. And Dr. Desai has just decided let him just stay a bit longer on the line so that we can continue this conversation before he steps into the meeting with the members of Parliament. So, Dr. Desai, because you're still on the line, then let us ask you this question. Now, Kenya is currently, the president is chairing the East African Community. And we also have a Kenyan who is now heading the secretariat of the East African Community. What do we stand to gain from this chairmanship round in terms of our leadership role in the East African Community?
The EAC is a very broad-based institution, and one of its magnificence is the fact that, it covers all aspects, whether it's social, economic, or environment, everything from healthcare to trade issues, etc., and so on, and education issues and so on, all with the hope of promoting integration. Now, specifically in this sector that you're talking about today, the aspiration and what His Excellency President Kenyatta espouses with respect to greater intra-trade is absolutely critical because, why have a bloc and not have as many people, as many East African community citizens have access to opportunity? So the sectors that we're looking at are indeed, value chains around agriculture and similar sectors that have end opportunity. And within this context, our hope is that, we increase intra-trade, we find ways and unique ways of inventing and creating trade hubs at border points. It's just startling to see. If I take you to Namanga or Busia or Malabar, you see thousands of traders, on a day-to-day basis carving out a livelihood, or MSMEs, performing a trade. And this needs to be organized, scaled and amplified, and also reachable through every artery possible within the context of the country. And it's for that reason, we have spent so much as the government with respect to an intermodal transport system. But what needs to happen quite clearly is that it's not just about importing and exporting commodities. It's all about value addition and how we're able to create that value and transition it into different processes of manufacturing all the way up to science, and in order to gain value for those that produce. And so the objective would be to work on standards. It would be to work on the entire ecosystem for markets, to reduce inefficiencies like NTBs and other challenges that we face, and create a very secure environment through the common external tariffs in order to ensure that we promote regional manufacturing in view of emerging markets, both in the UK, for example. Most of the produce that they consume is imported from abroad, and as far as fruit and vegetables are concerned. And similarly, if we look at the African Free Trade Area, that indeed is a further extension of our market for processed food. So the objective would be to see to it that we look into intra-trade opportunities to grow the agricultural base and to promote maximum innovation, supported by technology, which is absolutely critical. And so we look forward to the trade hubs, these platforms, these confederations. This is really enlightening. This is a new thing that we're creating confederations in agriculture that will then work in close cooperation with the EAC and government in order to address the systemic issues of policy, legislation, regulation. And so there's great hope now within the context of this leadership.
Okay, so then, Bimal, for you now, looking at how this is all going to play out currently and taking into consideration that, the market itself, there have been a few dents here and there previously when it comes to things like farmers complaining about input prices and things like that. Can you ensure with this platform now, already people are going to get really excited about buying and selling, trading on the platform. Are there concerns about a dent in the supply then when it comes to what we've seen in terms of shortages where farmers have complained about costs of input? Is that something that has been taken into consideration, and how will it play out?
So yeah, it's a very good question, to be honest. But it's what we've done now. We've got just a trading platform right now, and then the second phase of this initiative is put a fintech model on top of it. So already we're talking to one or two financial technology companies that really, how do you do the actual trade online with money flowing? So that's the next stage. And like P.S. Desai has mentioned, there's so many multiple sort of layers you can put onto this thing. So financial technology is important. Then we're using fintech. The P.S. has mentioned about the Namangan border one-stop shop. Our dream in KEPSA is to have zero border control, zero stop, so that movement of trade between the countries is seamless, and you just use technology to track the goods. Mm-hmm. Already the technology exists with blockchain or RFID. So the idea is to have as much seamless movement across the borders, which will reduce the cost of business, reduce these interruptions you just mentioned and these bumps on the road. Again, let business do what business is good at. Let us function. Let us, let market forces dictate. And really, what the president has done, His Excellency, last week when the Tanzanian president was here, he just said, let these guys just get on with it. Stop putting all these roadblocks in the middle. Let maize flow. Let Tanzanians work in Kenya if they want to work in Kenya. I think our president is excellent. He really is. A proper businessman. He understands how business flows. So I'm hoping that under his leadership, under the leadership of course CS and our PS as well, that some of these roadblocks are removed over the next we've got 10 months left as president. Yeah.
I'm liking this conversation more and more. But let me ask this question: even as we think of this platform and as we look at, say, I'm specifically talking now about KEPSA. We have the Africa Free Trade Area coming into being and into operation. Do you have plans to take advantage of this particular union?
Yeah, so for us, it's the most exciting thing possible is this Africa Free Trade Organization. As you know, I wouldn't want to use the word dominant in East Africa, but we're a big player in East Africa. And for us as manufacturers, us as businessmen, we just want the market to grow. We want to be less reliant on the Western countries. We want to be more reliant in Africa. We can manage Africa. We understand the culture. We understand the language. We know how business flows. For us, it's probably the most important, as KEPSA, new development that is going to happen in our business sector. I'll give you an example. How important, if you look at the future, why can't we have, for instance, an electric car being made in Tanzania, the seats or the engines made in Kenya, the batteries made in Uganda, the leather components coming from Ethiopia, and we put it all together in one of the locations. That's what Europe is all about. When they make Airbus, they take parts from all over the European Union and they put it together. And
so
that's
why
our
can't
vision.
I have to stop you there and say, because I think oftentimes we can be inspirational in the way in which we speak, and we say that we can do this and we can be on the same level as other countries in the world. But then if you look at the thing that's missing, it's actually something quite simple. I know where I see it from somebody who's in business and is operating in this manner. What is the problem, and why can't we actually operate like that? Because we have the resource in terms of human resource, in terms of material. We have vast land and resources. What is the kink, or rather the link, that is missing? Why can't we do it? Because we can, but we don't.
So you'll be surprised how dominant we are in Tanzania and Uganda, or how much investment we have in Uganda. I think businessmen generally are quite shy of exposing themselves too much. considering, the overall political climate in some of these other countries. But we are the largest single investors in Uganda. We're the single largest investors in Tanzania. We are massive in Zambia. We are also big investors, a lot of trading going on in Ethiopia. We're already in all these countries, and we're playing a significant role in these countries. It's just we are a little bit careful on how much we talk about these things. But the business is going on, and we are really, if you look at what's happening in Kenyan manufacturing, I think about 40% of our total output is being exported to these regions. It's already happening, although you may not know about it, but I think we're doing an excellent job. We've been in these markets for decades. I think there is really good stuff happening. I'm just happy that the road networks are opened up. All these things that the government is doing right now are exactly what we want them to do. Recently, me as Desai and our group, we went to Namanga border post, we went to Busia, we visited them, we went with Honorable Dr. Maduki, who is obviously now the most important person in ESC in terms of the bureaucracy. I think that now the areas that we are a little bit frustrated with, I think now we'll sort them out. But we're there already. We're doing a good job.
I think you are, but there's a balance that I want to discuss with you. Now, this is the balance of the people who make all these things possible, the so-called small-scale farmer. Now, I know a lot of what goes into how they benefit from this whole situation is dependent on the government. But again, since they end up with the manufacturer, they end up working at some level with those who actually use their produce. Is there a plan? Is there a way in which KEPSA and the association that deals with all these things can actually play a part in ensuring that the farmer doesn't get the short end of the stick? Let me explain why I'm asking this question. The tea sector for the longest time, again, is my example. It still is a profitable sector, but the bulk of the trade that we see in the tea sector comes from the small-scale farmer. It's the truth. Now, for the longest time, Kenya, KTDA did a job that, it still does a job that is considered excellent. However, in recent times, there have been developments which for KTDA have been excellent, but they are not mirrored in the benefit that the small-scale farmer has. So now, if I mirror small-scale farmer, small in tea, small-scale farmer in maize, in sugar, and in everything else that we cover, should you not then also play a role in ensuring that this small-scale farmer actually fully benefits from his produce?
Yeah, so it's exactly what we've done with this Facebook page, and we're just targeting the small farmer. I'll give you the concerns we have in Kenya.
Yes,
we are the largest consumers of maize in the region. We know that the small-scale farmer in Tanzania and Uganda are the growers. The problem is the guys in the middle are taking the profit. So what we said is, manufacturers, can you now deal directly with the farmer in Uganda and Tanzania or Kenya in that instance? No problem. Can you sign contracts with these growers, the small-scale growers, and buy from them directly so that the farmer gets the highest price possible the manufacturer can afford? The farmer knows directly who the manufacturer is, and exactly what you just said is what our platform is there for. Is to connect the small farmer with the big manufacturer. What is not happening at the moment, there is an information disconnect between the two. And it's our sincere hope that this is where the connection will happen. Again, I mentioned to you, you won't believe some of these farmers groups in Kenya on Facebook have got 3 to 4 million small-scale farmers on it. And if anybody can join in, and you can see the guy saying, I've got 10 tons of onions. This is my price. And at the bottom, you'll see in the comments, all right, send them to this company. This is my M-Pesa number. Already that connection is happening through technology, and I'm hoping this will now open up the region for us throughout using, helping small farmers.
Indeed, as you say this, Dr. Kantaria, the issue of marketing is a big one, especially for the smallholder farmers. So you've come up with this, you've decided to plant onions or tomatoes, and once they're grown, now you're starting to look for market. And the only market is Kongoya market or Wakulima market. And the other organized markets have a way in which they are structured. Now, you say that we have all these farmer groups coming together on social media where somebody just comes in and says, I have X and I'm looking for a buyer. Let's go into the platform that you'll be launching this afternoon. How would this then operate to the benefit of this one person who's decided to come up with use their piece of land in Kitengela and they've grown some whatever produce they have, and they're looking for market, or somebody who is looking for somebody who's growing something in Uganda or in Tanzania, how would they be able to connect using this platform? There are issues of authenticity. You want to make sure that the person that you're dealing with is actually an authentic trader. And how do you pay? How do you follow up the deliveries?
All right. So first of all, let me start by saying to you, in my company, Elgen Kenya, we do a lot of work with small farmers. I think we're the biggest in small-scale farm equipment, irrigation of chemicals and fertilizers. And whenever we get a farmer our new person coming into our offices, the first thing we're telling him, we will supply you the technology to grow the best onion in the market, tomatoes, no problem. In Kenya, we have good seeds, we have all the necessary inputs. But please focus on the market first before you start growing. Don't say, I'm going to grow and I'm going to sell it at the end. It never happens. You'll be in trouble. First, identify where the core market is, who's going to buy your produce and at what price, and then work backwards from there. We have so many times, a guy will sit in Nairobi, for instance, and he has, like you said, land in Kitengela, and says, I've got 2 acres, I've got water, let me plant tomatoes. It doesn't work that way. You've got to be quite shrewd in business and clever. So do your market research first. Find out who's going to buy from you. And then, of course, the seasons are important. Sometimes there's too much onions in the market, and sometimes there isn't enough. So you've got to be a little bit clever in terms of identifying when your season will be. And a lot of clever farmers have been counterintuitive. So when there's too many onions, they don't have any onions. So they get a maximum price. But anyway, that's a side point. The second point is we want to make sure that when a manufacturer in Kenya is now posting online saying, my requirement for the next 6 months are XYZ. I need for my potato crisps, for instance, I need this type of potato at this time, or I need, tomato paste, tomatoes for this paste, and this is my requirement over the next few months. We are now trying to get authentication of farmers using SCIA BMOs in that country, so that the guys in Tanzania, our counterpart, country president in Tanzania, will authenticate the guys who are using these platforms are going to be genuine. And way to do it is using a better technology and using financial technology. So we're working with one of these fintech companies to say, authenticate the farmer. It gets ticked off. There's a green box. If you go to Chinese websites, they have a tick box that we've trusted this farmer.
Yep.
We have a KM will say we will trust this manufacturer, and that's how they do business together. And M-Pesa works in the whole region. It works really well.
There's that big component that you've mentioned there, market intelligence and advisory services. Are you able to offer them now in a larger scale? Like you're saying, somebody just wants to get into agribusiness. Many people are looking to get into agribusiness, but they have absolutely no clue of how the market is structured or how they can get into the market.
So if I did that, I'll be a multi-billionaire, because it really is.
I like that. Yes, that previous multi.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, honest answer.
Look, when you talk about the market, say for instance in Kenya, and we have these farmers who have this large array of produce, but sometimes people who consume those products want a certain grade, a certain quality of that particular product. Say maybe an outlet wants a certain type of potato, or they want a certain type of maize cob. Now, KEPSA and the amalgam of this association that you are involved in, do they help farmers in understanding where they can go to improve their produce so that they can meet the demands of maybe this niche or this specific market?
Yeah, so that's the reason we started ASNET, to be honest with you. So you're exactly where we are at the moment. ASNET is the Kenyan equivalent of KEPSA, is the agriculture equivalent of KEPSA in Kenya. At the moment, you won't believe there are 400 different private sector BMOs, research institutions in Kenya. It's so big and it's so dominant in this country. So we created ASNET to be the overall umbrella body to coordinate some of these things you're mentioning. So at the moment, we realize there's so much money going into one sector, it's not going into the other. So we said to each other, how do we get us private sector better coordinated to help the ultimate farmer? It's taken us about a year. We've been around for about 2 years now. It's taking us a long time to bring everybody together. And the only good thing we've seen is government is very responsive to us now. Before, they didn't know who to talk to in the private sector when it came to agriculture. Now, if you talk to any of the PSs in Ministry of Agriculture, you saw PS Desai was with us just now. government is beginning to realize just how important agriculture is and who the opposing party is now in private sector. And there's a lot more coordination happening between us. Again, I'm telling you, we're not perfect. There's lots of gaps in the system. Some of these new bodies that we've started up under KEPSA, hopefully it's going to bridge the communication between the SMEs. For instance, we have Bwana Muteti, who's one of our board members at KEPSA. We're trying to work with him. We're trying to work with county government. We went to see county government last week, COG. And ASNET is trying to sign an MOU with them, with Honorable Neuro as chairman of the agriculture sector. How do we get ASNET to grassroots level where the agri-business actually is happening? And that's why we want to get ASNET down to the grassroots level and organize the private sector there. And that's where the heart is going to be. You won't believe all these years, we've just never had such a systematic way of approaching agribusiness, which is quite tragic, really. But anyway, past is past. Let's move forward. And we want to get down to grassroots level, down to county level, get agriculture organized at that level.
If I could just translate everything we're saying into something actionable that I can relate to directly, I'd be an extremely happy man. But
a multi-billionaire?
A multi-happy man.
Okay.
I am happy, but I would be infinitely happier. There is something that I think, had Dr. Desai been here, maybe he would have been the one to answer it. But since you are the business person, this is something you can also answer. When we look at the small-scale farmer and we look at the small-scale business person in this country, one of the things that I'm really not clear about is what the government does to protect these business people. There are many countries in the world, far more prosperous than us, who have very direct policies of protecting their business people, protecting the agriculture. My favorite example is usually Japan and the production of rice. The production of rice in Japan is actually expensive, but the government protects its rice farmers. Now, when we look at the trading that we're talking about within this country, even as we talk about expanding within the region and beyond East Africa, do you know of policies that the government has been put in place or they're planning to put in place to ensure that the farmer is protected?
Yes, we honestly, we live in a quite a capitalistic market, to be honest. Every man for himself, unfortunately. So recently, if you know the history of government interventions in agriculture, some have been successful, some maybe not that successful as we wanted them to be. So when they started doing the fertilizer imports of subsidized fertilizer, we know in the end they had to close it down. They've come out with a new program called the e-voucher program. I don't know if you guys have heard about it, but it's a very good program which Professor Boga has been promoting quite heavily under CS Munya. So what they've done is they've registered farmers and they've registered agro dealers, and they're subsidizing roughly 50% of the inputs that a farmer gets. And I think that's the cleverest way you can go about it. Instead of giving one commodity to a farmer and sometimes it gets diverted, if you just allow private sector to get involved. So the farmer goes to the agro dealer, he presents his card, the guy will give him, I think, 5,000 shillings worth of goods. Of that, 2,500 comes from the farmer and 2,500 goes from the government. It's working well. It's work in progress. It's just launched a couple of months ago. I think that sort of private sector involvement is really the secret in all this. I give you an example again of the fertilizers. I'm a big fertilizer importer. When the government started importing fertilizer and they started subsidizing it, I stopped importing. I couldn't compete with the government. How does a small company like mine compete with government? It just disrupted everything. When they stopped importing last year, all of us got back in the market, and now we're down to, I think, 4% profit margin. There's so much competition within ourselves. There's enough supply in the country. We fight with each other every day to bring our prices down. That is where the beauty of private sector comes in. Unfortunately, it may not answer your question about protecting the farmer, but if you allow private sector to work, ultimately there'll be a status quo where the buyer and the seller matches each other, and profit is made at every single level.
Dr. Bimal Kantaria, thank you very much for joining us. All the best as you launch the platform this afternoon.
Thank you very much, Elisa. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dr. Bimal Kantaria is the chairman of the Agriculture Sector Network in the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, also an agripreneur. This has been AgriTalk, where we talk about agribusiness, connecting the dots between agriculture, the business side of it, and how to ensure there's food security in the country. Remember, you can join AgriTalk every weekday between 4 and 5 p.m. Was it 5 and 6 p.m.? 4 and 5 p.m. with Philip Kaitani on KTN Farmers TV. Time for us to say goodbye to our audience on KTN Home who've been with us since the top of the hour. Now it's 5 minutes to 9. The conversations continue into the next hour. We're here until 10 a.m. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. Have a lovely day.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Spice FM.
Hey, it's getting hot in here. The media has greatly contributed to the moral rot that we experience in this country.
I remember a senior politician telling me, point blank, nobody steals in the field, it's stolen in the granary. So my friend, if you're going to win an election, jipange kwa granary.
I think we are suffering from Stockholm Syndrome. Our violator and abuser is also our redeemer in our mind.
The whole political class, the whole political institution is rotten. It is based on ideals that cannot progress our country forward.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings
4
done
minutes
right.
to 9. So, in terms of the potential that's there in agriculture, agribusiness, and business within the community and within Africa, huge.
Actually, it is stupendous.
Look, the people who said that agriculture essentially is as traditional as it has been, is the sector that could possibly lift Africa as a continent out of its economic stupor. They were not stupid.
They were not misled.
They were not misled in their thinking or expression of such. It is very clear. You have everything that you need. Can you imagine? For something that could essentially save economies, everything you need is right here. You don't have to import, bring it. You don't have to. The land is there. The resources are there. What you need is here. Now, the link between what you have and what you can do oftentimes is what presents the problem. But to think that one sector could single-handedly save economies, it's mind-blowing. And then why we would not want to jump on that as quickly as possible is equally as mind-blowing, you know? And I cannot right now think of a country on this continent, even those that have serious problems with arid lands and things like that. There's not a country on this continent that would not be able to take advantage of the opportunities that agriculture presents.
Yes, that is if we would stop fighting with each other, we would stop getting involved in our growth industry pastime in this country called impunity and corruption. Yes, if we did these things. You see, Dr. Kantare mentioned something that I particularly liked when he talked about market forces. Yes, from a theoretical perspective, it's actually very true what he said, that with competition, the end user is the one who actually benefits immensely. But then there's something that happens in this country in all aspects of our lives. It's called cartels. Yes.
They collude.
They will collude. So instead of fighting each other, at some level they may, but they will collude. And when they collude, the benefit that should actually accrue for that mwananchi will not accrue.
And that's where now the role of government comes in. And the role of government is ensuring that there's a level playing field, observing and seeing when cartels are forming, sees, okay, how do I break up this cartel? That's what the government should do. Now, the government getting into the business of saying, I'm going to regulate the price by bringing the product myself, also loses that
That
whole
opens it up for other issues that we really honestly would rather not deal with.
Yeah. Something else that he also said, the fact that we are doing big business in the region, it's only that we have got to be modest about it. Now that brings in the whole politics of everything. If Kenyan companies actually started chest thumping and saying the kind of business they are doing in Uganda, we are the kind of investments they made in Ethiopia, you will see backlash coming from those areas.
Of course there will be a backlash.
You just understand, you do your business, let's do it quietly.
But actually, I would rather add something to it. Do it honestly.
Do it, of course.
Yes.
Bottom line.
If you're doing it honestly and you're doing it fairly,
then even the people will see the benefits.
They will not mind you being big because your being big is of benefit to them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you for keeping it right here. In the next hour, let's look at what's been happening around the country. The by-elections. So who's winning, who's losing, where? What does it mean nationally? Good morning. It's now 9 a.m. Let's hear the latest from those regions and then we analyze it. Good morning.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning, this is the Newswire. I'm Leah Obaga. The tallying process in Juja by-elections has resumed. The census process was last night cancelled following an audit at the Mangu High School an audit area at the Mangu High School was raided by several people led by Kiambu Governor James Nyoro. Only 16 out of 184 polling stations had reported results when the counting of votes was halted. IBC Chair Wafula Chebukati has promised to ensure that those responsible for the violence at the Mangu High School polling station, including Kiambu Governor James Nyoro, face the law. Chebukati further says he'll write to the DPP to ensure action is taken. There's a worldwide shortage for the supply of COVID-19 vaccine COVAX. WHO's Tedros Adhanom says if countries which haven't used their vaccines would share with neighboring countries, it would help handle the shortage, as most countries which have excess or unused vaccines are leaving them to expire.
As you know, high-income countries account for 15% of the world's population, but have 45% of the world's vaccines. And lower middle-income countries account for almost half of the world's population, but have received just 17% of the world's vaccines. So the gap is really huge.
This comes as the government remains optimistic that they'll receive the 30 million doses of the Johnson & Johnson vaccines by August, yet WHO maintains that there is already a 140 million shortage of COVID vaccines. The National Assembly is today expected to discuss the report of the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee on the appointment of Martha Koome to fill the post of Chief Justice. National Assembly Speaker Justin Muturi gazetted the day to discuss the report, which was prepared following Koome's grilling by the committee on Thursday last week. Koome, who has 33 years of experience, is expected to fill the post which was left vacant following the retirement of David Maraga. 6 out of 79 primary students who were involved in an accident on the Kitale-Lodwar Road continue to recover at Kapenguria Level 5 Hospital after being involved in the accident. The students say the driver of the truck they were travelling in lost control and rolled several times, resulting in the accident.
Tulikuwa tunaenda shule upande wa Takwe. Tulikuwa 79, mimi na feel pain sana kwa mguu na kwa mkono. Niko hospitali Kapenguria, naishi Kitale na tulipata accident na nimeumia kifua.
Residents of the Trans Nzoia County, including youth leader Bernard Akifuna, have called on the government to compensate the children and provide them with specialized treatment. And finally, a prison police officer in Kitui County has killed his wife and son by shooting them following unknown reasons. White Assistant Chief Joseph Nunga says the officer left work last evening, and when he entered his house, he shot dead his wife and one-year-old son. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
Okay, so it's still hot on Mombasa Road today, headed into the city. From the SGR, it's moving along slowly as you go into through past General Motors. ICD then to the Southern Bypass is actually looking pretty good. You can use that. Coming off the Eastern Bypass, Outer Ring, that particular area, we had some issues this morning, but it looks like it's flowing a little bit better now. Where we have a sore thumb this morning is Langata Road, a little bit of Thika Road, and then out towards Limuru Road. Those are the areas that are thumping this morning. So let's keep an eye out for that if you're headed in that direction. All right, so let's talk. SpiceFM KE on Twitter, text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It's 5 minutes after 9. Kenya's biggest conversation gets into the 4th hour. CT, today's proverb.
Right. A snake that you can see does not bite.
A snake that you can see does not bite.
Yes. This one isn't puzzling you like this particular proverb isn't as puzzling as the
yesterday.
As yesterday, is it?
Yes, it is.
It is.
It's puzzling you like yesterday.
Okay.
You're just not being as verbal.
Why don't we, for just a single second, look at this reptile metaphorically? Okay, and say...
the snake represents.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
So, we have referred to individuals...
Nyoka.
Thank you very much.
Okay, sorry.
Yes.
Thank you.
Get it?
Yes.
I get it. So, by-elections took place yesterday. Voting was happening yesterday. Largely peaceful, save for some issues, one or two issues here and there. People accusing other people of going around trying to bribe voters. And then those will be dealt with by security forces. And then counting took place. And then tallying was happening at the tallying centers. Last night in Juja, they had to suspend the tallying process for Juja constituency parliamentary by-election because of something that happened. And the statement by the IEBC last night said at around 10:20 p.m. tonight, there was disruption of the tallying process at Mangu High School tallying center in Juja constituency by a group of individuals led by the Kiambu County Governor, James Nyoro. These acts of hooliganism made it impossible for the tallying process to proceed. In order to ensure the safety of our staff, election materials, and to preserve the integrity of the election process, the Commission hereby suspends the tallying process and announcement of results until normalcy is fully restored. The election material and results brought in by the presiding officer have been secured by the Commission, and the candidates are urged to keep vigil until the exercise resumes. This is what was happening last night. So, disrupted, so halted, until later. Let's get to the ground. So we'll be speaking with the Standard Group KTN reporters who are on the ground, and they've been there since yesterday. They've spent the entire night in these various regions. We will start with Chris Thairo, who is the KTN News reporter on the ground in Juja constituency. Chris, good morning.
A very good morning to you, Eric.
Thank you very much for joining us in the Situation Room. Now, Chris, has the tallying of votes resumed after IEBC suspended it last night?
Actually, a few minutes ago, the chairman of the IEBC, Wafula Chebukati, has just concluded his remarks. He was addressing members of the public. Remember, we have candidates here, we have their agents, and also we have members of the media. And going by his statement yesterday, he indicated that, as you correctly read to our listeners, is that he statement indicted the governor of Kiambu, Dr. James Nyoro, indicating that him, together with a crowd of youth, they really disrupted the tallying process yesterday, and that's the main reason they were forced as a commission to suspend the tallying process. But he has assured that the process will be resuming in a few minutes from now. But what he has indicated is that they will be communicating officially to the Director of Public Prosecution so that they can write an official statement with the investigations that they have, so that those people who will be found culpable can be brought to book. Remember, we have the Elections Act on the election malpractices, and violence is one of the issues that are against the process of voting. And so, in any time from now, we should be expecting the tallying to resume. By last evening, they had managed to tally 16 polling centers out of 183. So there's still much work to be done before we get to know who will be the next member of parliament for Juja. But before they suspended the People's Empowerment Party candidate, that is George Kembori, was leading with a margin of around 300 votes because he had around 800, and coming second was the Jubilee candidate, who is the widow to the late Francis Waititu, that is Susan Waititu, and she had around 400 votes. And so we expect that after the tallying resumes, we should be seeing the process coming to an end today. But Eric, what I can also assure you is that there is a high contingent of police here around Mangu High School, since they are not taking anything to chance. Remember yesterday, it seems they dropped their guard, and that's the reason why hooligans managed even to get where some of the tallying officers were. And let's hope that by evening we should be knowing who will be the next member of parliament for Juja constituency. Eric?
Chris, when the governor came in with his delegation, what was their main bone of contention? What were their complaints?
Their main bone of contention was that the process is taking long, and they were suspecting that there might be some elements or some individuals who are trying to stash ballot papers in the ballot boxes. And remember, Jubilee candidate Susan Waititu has been campaigning together with the governor for Kiambu. Remember, they are all from the Jubilee party. And Eric, this goes ahead to show the high stakes that this by-election has really set. Remember that if at all the People's Empowerment Party candidate, a party that is less than 5 months, and the leader is the Gatundu South Member of Parliament, Moses Kuria, if at all they manage to get this seat or clinch this seat, it goes ahead to indicate politically that Jubilee Party, which is headed, and it is the ruling Jubilee Party, and headed by President Uhuru Kenyatta. Remember, we are in Kiambu, Kiambu County, Juja constituency, which borders actually Gatundu South. What does this mean politically in terms of his political influence in his own political bucket? And so that's the reason why the stakes here are so high. And let's hope that the grievances that they were raising, they will be sorted out. But what I can also say is that the ballot boxes and the ballot papers had already been secured by then, and so we should be expecting that the process should be resuming very soon. Latif, Eric.
Chris, you mentioned that there was heavy police presence. Are we looking then at a situation that could go out of control, or are there any indications that there is dissatisfaction, so any kind of violence then could occur?
Actually, the reason why some of those hooligans, let me call them hooligans, or the crowd that had been that came and disrupted yesterday's process, it showed that the security was not that tight, and the inspector of police was forced to call more reinforcement here. I have counted a good number of police vehicles, and we even have the Red Berets, those who we call Fanya Fujo, one of the FFU, and also the AP, and they are really all over this school. And if you don't have a badge, because remember we are at Mangu High School, and the schools are still open, students are still learning. So if you don't have any IEBC badge as an agent, or if you don't have an IEBC badge as a media personality, then you're not being allowed inside the school. As I was coming in, at least there was minimal activities at the gate. Remember, the police are not allowing any crowds around this school so that the learning process cannot be interfered. But what I suspect is that after they announce who will be the next member of parliament for Juja constituency, then we should be seeing the crowds. But outside, that is along, because the school is situated along Thika Road as you head to Thika Town, and we should be expecting celebrations on that end, but not inside the school. Eric.
Thank you very much, Chris. We wish you all the best as you continue covering the unfolding vote counting.
Thank you.
Have a lovely day.
You too.
Let's cross over now to Bonchari, where the IEBC declared Omeke Robert Oboto of ODM as the winner in the just concluded Bonchari member of National Assembly by-election. And that was a couple of hours ago, about 3 years ago. Our reporter on the ground is Kevin Ogutu. He's now in Bonchari. He joins us. Good morning, Kevin.
A very good morning.
And thank you very much for joining us. So, winner declared, but we have seen statements, especially from the leader of ODM, whose candidate has won. But you've seen a statement talking about use of police and excessive and wrongful use of police.
Well, this is something that the ODM as a party, and this has been communicated through the various officials. The ODM party has been dissatisfied with the kind of the heavy contingent of police officers that had been deployed in the Bonchari constituency by-election. This is something that they thought was tantamount to intimidation of the voters, which would now be a recipe for voter apathy. Now, strangely, apparently, we have now ODM as a party, the candidate now, being declared the winner. But still, even after getting the certificate from the returning officer, the constituent returning officer, IEBC, that is, Pavel Oimeke, who was declared the winner, still raised concern about the heavy police presence, saying that this was meant to achieve something that didn't achieve, and I think that was maybe scaring away potential voters. So in as much as ODM has carried the day, there is still that feeling that there were state machineries that were deployed, put in place to ensure that there is that voter apathy, and with that, probably another candidate would benefit from that kind of situation. So that is the situation that we have in Nyeri, if you ask me, because we are seeing the very party that is the candidate has been declared the winner still showing dissatisfaction with the manner in which the presence of the police in Bonchari, the sea of police officers from all the sectors. We have the Red Berets, we have the AP, we have the GSU. I mean, like every other person, every other police. So the number was really. Personally, I've never experienced such covering any by-election.
But Kevin, so the complaint is that there is a lot of security being provided.
On one hand, it is a lot of security being provided, but on the other hand, what was coming out was, we have not really moved far away from the fact that an ordinary Kenyan perceives a police officer as an enemy, quote unquote. And when you move into the villages, the feeling is that when there is unnecessary need for such a heavy presence of police officers, then most people will feel like, it looks like there could be trouble, let me just stay in the house.
Yeah.
When you say unusual, let me ask this question, because as you're speaking, I'm trying to picture. Did this large contingent of reported police presence interfere in any way with the electoral process?
It didn't interfere, but you see, the kind of complaint that is coming out, given the situation that we've had, which of course I was also experiencing for the first time, is a situation whereby you are seeing, in a polling station, normally we have 2 police officers, but you could find more than 3. And apart from that, on the road, you find at some point we have got a Land Cruiser full of police officers just on standby.
Yep.
In another point, you get a lorry full of police officers just on standby. There are those who are moving, just doing patrols. So psychologically, it creates a feeling that there could be trouble. And that is the issue that the ODM had with the presence of the police officers.
They have every right to point to what they are pointing to. But remember, not too long ago, we had another by-election in Western Kenya, okay? And now the complaints coming out from there was that they want enough.
The police were just sitting back
and watching, and they want enough. So which is which?
Well, if you ask me that, I will say you never really you can never really understand what politicians really mean, because here we have got a situation which is exact opposite of what we saw the other time, and in the same region, I mean Western region. But again, I had the opportunity to cover both. So, well, we may blame the political class for trying to get an excuse for this. But on the other hand, maybe the psychologists could have a better explanation. If at all, the claims could be true. The fact that there is heavy presence of police, does it have a psychological effect on an ordinary mwananchi? Will it create some fear? So that is something that, of course, maybe we can leave it upon psychologists to tell us if at all it could have any impact or contribute in one way or another to what happened.
Could be open to debate. And it's actually a good thing, Kevin, because you covered those other by-elections. Were you in Matungu or Kabuchai?
I was in Matungu by-election.
Yes. So you covered the Matungu by-election, and now you have covered this one in Bonchari. You have seen. Have you been able to talk to the people? And is that fear that's being talked about by the politicians also being spoken of by the citizens, the voters? Are they saying, well, I could have participated in this exercise, but when I saw the kind of police officers that were out there, I decided I'm not going to vote?
Well, there were a few cases where we could see a group of people approaching a police station, and then all of a sudden they disappear into thin air. I couldn't really get the opportunity to ask them why they decided to retreat. But, so I may not really have a strict answer to that because I didn't get the opportunity to ask.
Okay.
But what we may need to interrogate is if at all, given the kind of relationships Kenyans had with the law enforcement officers, if this could have such kind of impact. But again, as you pointed out, we had a totally different scenario in Matungu, where we had a number of political bigwigs who will go into who will go into polling stations, sack the election materials because of the small number of the police officers who were around there. I remember at some point we had, because of the situation, the scene was so ugly. A whole lorry of red berets had to be deployed, and we had run around dodging tear gas canisters here and there in Matungu by-election. So, if you ask me again, it's something that should be maybe interrogated further, so that we can strike a balance. What is too much police presence, and when do we say that this is not enough for an efficient election? Yes.
Thank you very much, Kevin. So the ODM candidate was declared winner. The second candidate was the Jubilee candidate, and then UDA came in third, and the other candidates followed. Speaking with the other candidates who participated in this, do they sound like they're happy with the outcome?
Well, we haven't really had anything to the contrary. I mean, because we have Pavelo Imeke of ODM garnering 8,000 votes. Remember, the turnout was about 50% in Bonchari by-election. Then Opore, a veteran, actually he was the second MP for Bonchari in 1997, but he came second with 7,200. And then the wife to the late MP John Oro Oyoka, that's Oro Teresa Bitutu, coming third of UDA. Nobody has come out really to say that the election the process was flawed, and that, I think, communicates their satisfaction with the kind of results that we got this dawn at the constituency tallying office.
Okay. Kevin Ogutu, thank you very much for speaking to us. Kevin is a Standard Group reporter who is in Bonchari constituency. Have a lovely day.
Okay, thanks. You too.
Thank you.
And then we also had a third by-election, and this is the member of the County Assembly for Rie Ward in Nyandarua County. The winner here was Francis Moraya Githaiga of UDA, who was declared the duly elected member of that County Assembly by the IEBC. Our reporter Ibrahim Karanja has been covering this and is also joining us on the line. Ibrahim, good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
Thank you very much for joining us. So we heard the results. This one was basically declared by midnight last night.
Yes, we had the results by midnight. You could say all the 26 polling stations in that particular ward brought in their results quite early. So by midnight, we had all concluded that particular exercise. By the time we left Rurie, the people there had burst into celebrations despite the curfew and lifting the winner up. So that's how we left it by midnight. By the time we were leaving Rurie ward last night.
How would you describe it? Was it hotly contested, or was this a walkover for the UDA candidate?
It wasn't a walkover. Given that we saw sort of much as it was an MCA by-election, it sort of played out like a national politics by-election. This was more or less a President Uhuru Kenyatta versus his deputy William Ruto contest. Because even up to the last weekend, we saw a whole battalion of those supporting President Uhuru Kenyatta, including Nyandarua Governor Francis Kimemia, his neighboring governor of Laikipia and Nderitu Mureithi, the majority leader in the National Assembly, Amos Kimunya, Nyeri Town MP, Kumziri Mbogo, area MP, Olkalau MP, David Kiaraho, all of whom are supporting the president, campaigning for the Jubilee candidate, while the UDA candidate had a whole battalion that is allied to the deputy president, of course, led by the woman representative, Ezi Tau, Madera Member of Parliament, Rigathi Gachagua, the Naivasha MP, Zane Kihara, and even at some point, these deputy president allied leaders even called the DP over the weekend, and the DP addressed residents of Rurie on phone, even urged them to vote for the UDA candidate. And I remember Rigathi, while talking to the residents, said that you guys need to come and vote for the UDA candidate to remind President Uhuru Kenyatta that we owe his deputy a debt. There was that conversation over the weekend. So it was hotly contested. What also found out in terms of security, like what Kevin said, police officers all over, even at some point, goons coming out, showed that it was not only about an MCS, something else was being communicated. Pundits are saying, the ones I've spoken to are saying that this was sort of a deciding factor. Because remember, I think 2 or so months ago, we also covered the London Ward by-election, which, and remember, Nakuru, Nyandarua are all considered to be part of the larger Mount Kenya region, the 10 or 11 counties in Mount Kenya region, which President Kenyatta had a very solid grip on. But now it seems to be slipping away. So many said that this was sort of a revolt vote against President Uhuru Kenyatta, Eric.
So is it indicative of what now the atmosphere is? What from the result of the vote does it show? Folks are throwing their support behind the deputy president or the president. What are we looking at here?
From the results, and given that the UDA candidate, Francis Muraya Githaiga, won and had over almost 1,200 vote difference, because he had 4,303 votes, while the Jubilee candidate had 3,143. From what I felt, and from the people I talked to, it sort of felt like a protest, especially a protest not really against President Uhuru Kenyatta, but a protest against the kind of machinery that was in Rurie, especially yesterday. Because in the morning when I was speaking to residents, they decried of the huge police presence there. They said that the police officers are here to intimidate us. They don't want us to go vote. and looking at the last turnout, I mean, by the time polls were closed, 52% voter turnout in a by-election. This was quite impressive, because usually in our by-elections we look at 25, 30%. However, 52% sort of looked like it was a protest, people coming out to say, you see, police are here and we are coming out simply because we want to revolt against this kind of machinery that is being used.
Or they could just be saying, we feel safe, so we're coming out to vote.
Well, one can actually argue that way.
Or if I'm to go by the examples you've given of the heavyweights who are in attendance, then clearly this was a well-publicized election. So people probably had the motivation to actually go and vote.
True. But then again, looking at by-elections and looking at the trend and how Mount Kenya have been coming out, I mean, it's also indicative of what happened in Juja. I mean, Juja, let me talk about London Ward. Let me as well talk about now Rurie Ward. People of Mount Kenya have actually been holding elections in a very heavy way. So elections have defined lots of things in Mount Kenya. So they also, I remember even looking at women as old, I think I didn't ask their age, but I'd say over 70 years, queuing to wait and vote.
To vote.
They were told the police officers are out there, and these police officers had rungus. Well, they really exercised restraint because at no point did I see police officers engaging locals, but I saw locals engaging some strangers in the name of, they christened them men in black. I think what I counted very fast was at least 30 men, very huge actually, giants I must say, very huge, engaging locals, throwing stones at each other, and this was quite unfortunate towards the end of the poll, Eric.
Well, that's some interesting developments there as well. Ibrahim, we want to thank you very much for those updates there this morning. So how is the situation now? Must be calm, people are home, have gone back to their normal everyday business?
Yes, by the time we left last evening, it was celebrations galore despite the curfew. However, there was a concern. Much as the UDA candidate had been declared winner, I feel like it is very likely that Jubilee candidate might challenge that particular result, because by the time it was announced, he was at the tallying center, and by the time the results were announced, he stood up and said, "I am not satisfied."
Okay.
Well, he wasn't given an opportunity to explain himself as to why he was not satisfied, I guess, because the exercise was done and dusted, and perhaps they'll expect him to now move to court. But I saw him and his agents sort of doing a comparison of what they had on paper and what was being reflected on the screen. And if indeed what he meant was serious, then we might be looking at him going to the courts today. But basically, Rodie has gone back to being calm, and it might be, like I say, it might be indicative of also what might happen in that particular county, Nyandarua County. This, even as we narrow down from President Uhuru Kenyatta to his deputy, it had also some bit of local politics in terms of Governor Francis Kimemia versus the woman representative Faith Gitau, because while campaigning, Kimemia would use Kikuyu words and he'd say, "I am not, I'm not Tanjage to be defeated by a woman." He used to make such kind of comments. So it might actually indicate on where this particular county might go, election-wise or political-wise.
People usually put their foot in the mouth. I'd rather die. I cannot be defeated by a woman.
And then the very thing that you say would not happen happens. They are not very good prophets, these people, are they?
Egg on face, no?
Yes, it is sort of an egg on the face for Governor Kimemia, because indeed this one, he really came out to say that there's no way the woman representative would beat him in this particular contest. And there is also another factor. Aside from Governor Kimemia, there was also another heavyweight in this particular by-election, and that is Water CS Cecily Kariuki, who was supporting the Jubilee candidate. But then again, it has been said that there has been infighting between Cecily Kariuki and Francis Kimemia, because Cecily wants to unseat, or allegedly wants to unseat Kimemia, while Kimemia still wants to retain that seat. So that might as well sort of spoils the cards for the Jubilee candidate, because infighting in their own camp. That's what we witnessed in Nyandarua.
Many dynamics. Thank you very much, Ibrahim Karanja.
Asante sana.
Have a lovely day. Ibrahim is the Standard Group correspondent who was covering the Rurie by-election last night. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Then let's take a break. Take a look at the traffic and the weather forecast. When we come back, we'll open up the phone lines. What lessons can we draw from the by-elections thus far? So we have seen in Bonchari, ODM has taken the day. In Rurie, UDA has taken the day. The tallying is about to resume in Juja after it was suspended last night by the IEBC following what they called the invasion of the tallying center by goons who were led by a leader who is the county governor, Dr. James Nyoro. So we're waiting for those results that will come out later. But we've seen a statement from the ODM party leader, Raila Odinga, saying what we witnessed in the by-elections in Bonchari and Juja is an abuse of police powers and an arrogant display of impunity by a few overzealous people in senior government offices. Just what we were talking about yesterday has come out now from the very top. 26 minutes to 10. Time for a break. We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is SpiceFM.
Naivas Supermarket believes in celebrating mothers every day. Tune in to Sugar and Spice with me, Yolanda Mulwa and DJ Absolute from 11 a.m. every weekday to learn more about a Naivas mum and the similarities you can draw from the role it plays to Kenyans across the country. And stand a chance to win shopping vouchers with Naivas.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
Thank you.
The political class, the contestants, everybody is trying to outsteal the other.
Remorse is not taught in any school. Manners is something you get from your mother. You don't get it from your political party.
Why are we so unfocused as a country? Why are we spending money and resources, yet we have real challenges in this country?
This coronavirus pandemic should teach us one thing, that universal healthcare is critical. Because at this point...
The weather with Spice FM.
All right, still mostly cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning at 18, highs of 24 and lows of 14. It's cloudy in Nyeri at 18, highs of 23 and lows of 13. We'll see lows of 14 in Nakuru, where it's sunny at 18. It's 18 degrees and sunny in Eldoret, highs of 24 and lows of 13. Mostly cloudy conditions in Kisumu at 24, highs of 27. 26 will be the high in Kakamega. It's mostly cloudy at 25. Light rain in some parts of Mombasa, according to the forecast, at 28. Highs of 31 and lows of 25. Partly sunny conditions at 29. Highs of 30 and lows of 26. We're looking at rain in some parts of Kampala as well. Highs of 25 and lows of 18. And light rain in Dar es Salaam at 27. Highs of 30 and lows of 22. We'll see lows of 9 in Johannesburg. It's sunny at 13. Rain showers in Lagos at 25. Highs of 33. 32 will be the high, where it's partly sunny in Kinshasa. We're looking at warm conditions out in Beijing at 31. That'll be the high for today, down to lows of 19. Mostly cloudy conditions in Paris at 10, highs of 15 and lows of 7. Looking at rain showers in London at 10, highs of 16 and lows of 7. And it's clear in New York at 20. A warm day, highs of 31 and lows of 17.
Spice up your life.
James Gishuru, not so bad today, coming out and connecting with Westlands, going towards the city. So that is not at a bumper-to-bumper situation just yet. Okay, so folks are still telling us that if you're coming from Kitengela using Mombasa Road, you might want to go through Arusha. Go to Tanzania. Come back first. There's the option that you're being given this morning. So traffic was hot and heavy on Mombasa Road. Not so bad right now. Let's see how it opens up throughout the rest of the morning. It shouldn't be too crazy though. So let's just take that into consideration as you are coming out. Langata Road, still heavy. Limuru Road today also looking quite interesting. Landis, it looks like all the roads with L's today are providing us with issues. Let's take a look and see what it looks like through the day. Talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Welcome to Spice FM, the best exclusive radio station bringing you the best mix of the best music ever. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM,
So there
Nairobi.
was heavy security, proper security in some interpretation. Proper provision of security in the just concluded by elections. But people are feeling, surely, kitu kidogo, unaleta police station mzima.
But there's a contrast here, if you consider, right? The areas that we're being told had heavy police presence, goon squad, violence, zero. Where police presence seems to have lapsed, goon squad
Men in
presence
black.
present.
Yes.
You see, so
There
police
wasn't
presence-
that much police presence at the Mangu High School Tallying Center before 11 p.m. last night.
Yes.
What did we see?
goon squad.
Goon squad.
Unfortunately led by somebody who you really do not want to attach the term good to. But under these circumstances, one doesn't really have much option, does one?
No.
No. So, again, but The thing that, though, all our correspondents have brought out is the relationship that the citizenry have with the security forces. Because...
See police, see wahala.
Yes.
Bam.
The citizenry of this country don't seem comfortable with their police service or their police force. They
They're not.
They don't seem comfortable.
No.
But then again, look at the voter turnout, okay? Despite or in spite of the heavy police presence, there was a 50% turnout in Bonchari for a by-election. Normally, by-election turnouts are 30%. 25.
There was a statement being made then by the
50%.
turnout.
There's always a statement. Even in Msambweni, there was a statement being made. Is that what was it? It was Msambweni,
Yes,
right?
it was Msambweni.
Yes, there was a statement being made. But what was the turnout? Even in the other by-election, it's always a statement being made, but the turnout is low. So that's why I'm wondering, when we say that the people saw the police and therefore they feared to come out, but they did, man. We saw more police officers coming
Were they
out.
afraid to come out or stay out? They come vote and go.
Which is very good.
Yeah, I think so. Because then if the presence then remains, then clearly they did not want any trouble. But they realized that they needed to come out and vote because there was a statement that needed to be made. Perhaps you would see that in other elections such as this, people are going to vote and then they're going to mill around, and then that's why you see people are caught up in any kind of melee that may come about, right? But did people come, vote and go because they realize, hold on a minute, these guys are here for something. Let's just vote because we must.
And go home.
And then go home.
You can also look at it the other way around, okay? You may say that, for example, in Matungu and Kabuchai, a small group of people came out to what may have been thought was coming out to vote, and then they stayed out. And by staying out and having those clashes, they prevented those who would have wanted to come out to vote from coming out to vote. Yesterday, the people who were coming out to vote were those who were genuinely interested in casting their ballot, and that's what they came and did, and then they went back home. Those who would normally come out to just cause a fracas and start taunting one another and start fighting were discouraged from doing that, and that allowed genuine voters to come out and vote.
So what we're actually saying is that the police presence story is something that people believe is true, but the evidence is pointing to something quite different. Because those who actually prevent people from actually coming to vote appear not to be the police force, but rather the goon squads.
The goon squads.
Yes.
They're the ones that actually made people not to come out to vote in the other elections, in the other by-elections, for whatever reason, the fear that they represent and all. A 52% voter turnout for an MCA by-election.
That's high.
More than half of the registered voters in a ward turned up to vote.
But you know what is of interest? Again, the dynamics that were presented by our colleague Karanja actually point to something interesting. Because the politics of Nyandarua County manifested itself in full Sandeware. Meaning, everyone was putting their best foot forward. And this particular election, for an MCA, became the focus of not just the county, even neighboring counties, even government officials. So, this wasn't a small thing. This was like the litmus test. Let's see. But then again, I'm going to argue that Juja seems to be playing out in the same way.
It's the same, eh?
Yes.
It's a bigger, there's a national issue and there's a county issue.
Yes.
That's playing out
yes.
in Juja.
Yes. And there's also a different level of the individuals who are behind each of these parties and their popularity or supposed popularity or the assumption that this represents the popularity is also playing out.
So there's also a personality clash here.
There is a very serious
between the various
clash.
personalities
Yes.
in Kiambu County.
Yes.
Who do you think you are?
Precisely. And the Wananchi are also getting into the fray and saying, okay, let us tell you what we think. Yes.
This is big. It is quite it's quite big. I'm trying to scroll back into the IEBC records to see the kind of turnout that we're getting in the other by-elections. In this particular one, they haven't really given us the results we got. Number of voters.
But there's something else that this heightened, because what is certain with our elections right now, with the foray of the deputy president into the political arena as a player and an aspirant for the presidency, new energy has been injected into this competition. Yes. Because it isn't just Jubilee, ODM.
No, there's more in terms of throwing into
there's
the
more,
circle.
yes.
Yeah.
And also with the more, there are individuals who now a little spoiled for choice. Because,
But I think that's very interesting that you say that, because I think also then in the responses that you get, that people are then voting in people aside from your normal two options, it shows you also that people are looking for something else. That those who then are making the decisions are looking for something else apart from your just two run-of-the-mill options every time an election comes about.
Yes.
Right?
Something
Before
else
I would
like
have
what?
said that, I mean, what did we see is that, okay, so we saw UDA here breaking off from the proverbial Jubilee. We saw, what is it,
PEP.
PEP. We saw PEP, again, away from your proverbial Jubilee. So not just in the selection of the people, as it were, but in selection of a different option. Before I would have said that,
I'm asking where the option issue comes in. Option between who and who. For example, let's look at the Bonchari by-election, okay? So ODM candidate has won, and then the second candidate was Jubilee, and the third candidate was the UDA candidate. So what is the new choice here?
No, I'm not talking about the one where ODM won. I'm talking about like now, for example.
Like in
where
Juja
UDA
now, where we have a PEP guy, and
Yes.
then we'll have
For the purposes
a
of
Jubilee.
my argument, we'll go where it suits it. Like
where
Like
Jubilee is
Juja.
split.
Exactly.
Right. So Juja now.
So it could be somebody. Folks are looking for a different option, and if presented with one strong enough,
That is
the one
beyond
that
the
they're going
independent candidate.
that they're going to choose it, right?
Me, I'm not getting it, by the way. And see, this is what I mean by I'm not getting it. As far as I'm concerned, when I see UDA and I see Jubilee, I see the
You
same
see
thing.
Jubilee.
I see the same thing. I see it's the same people. You had the one choice of Uhuru and Ruto together. Then you're coming to choose either Uhuru or Ruto. How have you gone for a different thing?
Actually, the different thing as I see it is this. Beyond the Uhuru-Ruto saga or scenario, you now have at the local level a local kingpin. Okay? Somebody whose interest. Remember, all these small parties joined Jubilee and then they ceased to exist.
Yes.
Okay? Now we have this particular party that is coming up. Okay? And this party has come up and it looks like they are a formidable force. Because by the time a prominent leader in a community comes up with a goon squad, no less, okay, it's a clear indication that things are probably not going quite the way they would have wanted it to go. Okay,
things are going south.
They are not, and also it's a show of might here. Meaning, here I am, Mr. Not too big a personality in politics, but I have my political party. Let me show you what I can do with my small political party.
This PEP participated in another by-election in Murang'a.
Yes.
For an MCA position. And it also had a very strong showing. So let's just talk about it. Moses Kuria has sponsored candidates in the by-elections.
Yes, he has.
And you can see.
Yes.
Juja,
And
it's Moses Kuria saying...
And it's not a storm in a teacup. It's a genuine storm. Because all this drama that we're seeing for somebody who's considered insignificant, it wouldn't be there. But then also, remember, traditionally, Central Kenya, like Western Kenya, have this inclination for always having this variety of choices that they are inclined to. Meaning they were not going to look, at some level, they don't really care about the party. They ask themselves, okay, who is this person? They'll vote for that person.
They'll go for the person.
It's something they have shown over and over and over and over again. As I said, like Western Kenya, they have also shown that particular inclination towards diversity. Yes. So we are seeing it yet again. But the real diversity is in the breaking of ranks of what we refer to as traditional jubilee.
Traditional jubilee voting.
Yes.
Selection.
Yes. That one, ranks have been broken.
Yeah.
It is clear.
It's different. People want an option. People want something different. It's clear that, okay, we're not just going to go voting the same way in which we have been voting. And I think now, the electorate is showing that, at least on some level, showing that, you know what, you're not going to continue stuffing this thing down our throats.
So people vote for people. Not party. Where are you today? I like you, I'll follow you. Whatever your
if there's
outfit.
some kind of
promise, they can't vote for a party if the leader of that party is someone whom they favor. They have done it before. We saw it with Kenneth Matiba. People who are in his party would get voted in. And there were some disparaging remarks that were made by individuals who are then in KANU. But nonetheless, it shows that if they favor the leader, then they will follow. But if there is disunity and there's some form of disarray, then the individual will trump the party or the choice of the individual.
Let's look at the statement that was released this morning by Raila Odinga, the leader of ODM. He says, an election process is an opportunity for the voters to express their will at the ballot and not an avenue to pursue imaginary and short-legged, those two words are in caps, political interests. Security forces exist to serve the people and not the interests of those out to conduct political experiments. We discussed it yesterday.
We did.
Certain figures who are not political figures but who are serving in government being accused of having a play in the by-elections.
Yes.
This statement by Raila seems to be saying exactly the same thing. Security forces, it's an abuse of police powers and an arrogant display of impunity by a few overzealous and bellicose government functionaries. He's basically just finger pointing at individual people who should not be participating in politics, but he says they are participating in politics.
This one doesn't require algebra.
No, it doesn't. It's
just basic maths. You may not even need to go into subtraction. It's just plus. If you really try minus, but divide doesn't arrive.
Doesn't.
No, it's just 1 + 1 equals this. However, one of the things that human beings do well is they put their best foot forward. If I am in a position where I know there's something I am pursuing, I will use everything that is at my disposal to ensure that I get what I want. It's what human beings do. So what is actually being implied here is not just this show of force. No, as a lone activity. It is being pointed as something that portends activities gearing towards 2022. Yes. Because for a leader of a political party, as senior as the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, to come out and say this, you are being invited to actually ponder and consider what is actually being said here.
Yeah.
After all, his party won.
Yep.
Yes. And yet, there are these comments. Comments like these are normally associated with a loss.
Loser.
Yes. But they have won.
They came out, well, not directly from Raila, but from very close lieutenants of his. This is James Serengo and Otiende Amolo after the by-elections in Kabuchai and Matungu. And remember what they said. They said the same thing. Some government functionaries interfered with the election process. Some government functionaries poured money and misused state resources to manipulate the outcome of that election. And the conclusion of what they were saying was, remember what was happening in 2007 before the handshake. Remember that? Like Karaoke would tell us. Remember what was happening in 2007 after that election. Remember that?
Thank you.
Thank you. What was happening then? Okay? Just the fact that we have some sort of peace and quiet doesn't mean that we have forgotten what was happening then. And it could happen again. Listen to Raila's statement this morning. This peaceful coexistence post-2018 must not be taken for granted by some rogue elements wanting to confuse the handshake for an excuse to erode our hard-earned liberties.
That is...
It's always like Do you remember what we did, Wewe? Do you remember? Before you came with a white flag. Do you remember?
We both had our hands dirty, my friend.
Do you remember what I was doing? Just because you came with your white flag and I welcomed you and I said, okay, let's have peace. That mean that I have forgotten that I have lost my fight. Naeza chafua.
And what stops you?
Well,
There's a peace accord.
It's
called
a handshake.
However...
But don't forget.
That's what I'm saying.
Not
the handshake is not foolproof then in all intents and purposes, if that's what you want to say. If you reserve the right to continue reminding me or reminding everybody who was watching this handshake that, you know what, we could very easily go back there. Then it is just for... it almost sounds as though it's just eye service.
No,
basically this is a ceasefire. It was not.
But
it was not the conclusion.
Go back there.
It's just a ceasefire.
Actually,
it requires something small to trigger it back.
Exactly.
If what you're hearing is from a politician, that is always a constant state of affairs. Because if that wasn't a constant state of affairs among politicians, you wouldn't hear rumblings within political parties among themselves. You wouldn't. It would just be smooth sailing and everybody would toe the line and things would move on. But the entire political process is like a live being. It's like an entity that is alive and well and has a life of its own. And because I say this because at any given moment in time, if you follow the speeches and the statements that politicians make and the circumstances in which they make those particular statements, you will often see a pattern. And you will find that the very same thing that others are being accused of is probably the very same thing that they themselves are pursuing. Yes.
Same story over and over.
However,
just packaged differently.
Yes. But having said that, if you have been in the opposition for as long as ODM has been, they have been at the receiving end of government attention, the negative aspects of it. So their experience would be different. They're saying, we've seen this and we've seen how it's acted against us in the past. And we understand what it was meant to do. So even now, when we seem to have this peaceful pact, do not think that we are not alive to what the intentions often are.
Yeah.
Yes. Because from experience, their lived experience has been, when the government acts against you, this is what happens.
Yes.
But what I was saying yesterday is, instead of us, just dancing around this whole issue and pointing fingers at some imaginary government functionaries, take action. Go straight up and say, this is it. I have an accusation against so-and-so who serves as principal secretary, or so-and-so who serves as cabinet secretary, or so-and-so who serves as a director in government, and they should not be doing this. And in fact, institute proceedings against them in court. This serves as a lesson. It's a deterrent to any other government functionary who would
choose
put their
to
head
behave
out.
in this manner. Yeah. Absolutely.
Otherwise, what we're doing is, we're just playing dancing games here and there. We want to use them at some point, then in other times we don't want to use them. Who suffers? It's the people. Because now you're coming to tell us that whatever result is announced today in Juja, there will be questions of, but was everybody allowed to participate in this? But was there ballot stuffing that happened? But were police being misused?
If that doesn't happen, Eric, I might actually start asking whether I'm actually in Kenya.
Or that you actually really had an election.
Yes.
It's not possible for an election to be carried out and somebody wouldn't have issues thereafter.
Peaceful election, that one we're used to. The election process is always peaceful.
The voting process.
The voting process.
Voting process. Yes. Or election is the entire sum of all the activities plus counting. Oh, that's election. Okay, voting.
Voting is always peaceful.
Always.
You see, these people...
By and large. Well, apart from Matungu and Kabuchai.
It was peaceful until
it started off peacefully.
Yes.
Thank you.
Until got to that point.
Voters are peaceful. Let me put it that way.
Yes.
Voters are peaceful.
Actually, that's a very good way of putting it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Today's proverb.
A snake that you can see does not bite you.
A snake that you can see does not bite you.
Yes, and I'm sure that the murmurings that we keep hearing, it's just that the individuals involved, but I'm sure in the minds of the people who are speaking, they're saying, this snake.
They can see the snake.
They can see the snake.
So they're not being bitten.
No, they're not being bitten, and they know. And that's why they're speaking about it. Because when you're bitten, my friend, Your focus will be on the pain and whatever else accompanies the bite.
You'll be looking at death. The gates opening. Thank you for tuning into the Situation Room today. We are always happy when you're able to join us. Join us again tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. We'll be here until 10. So, we have new adults in the room.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
The Duchess of Ikolomani, of course. The Shy Mistress.
Right.
And the Bad Boy Sweetheart.
Wait.
Got it.
Shy Mistress, Bad Boy Sweetheart, and the Duchess.
Yes.
Okay, join them from tonight, 7 p.m. Have a lovely day. It's now 10 o'clock.
The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning, this is the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga. Kiambu Town MP Jude Jomo now says that their rivals, People's Empowerment Party PEP, in the Juja by-elections have rigged the election by the help of IBC. The MP from the Jubilee Party says the process is flawed and there are votes that haven't been counted. He says that they'll not recognize the results unless the votes are counted one by one. The counting of votes in the by-elections resumed this morning after it was disrupted last night by Kiambu Governor James Nyoro and his team over fraud allegations. As the count continues, PEP has 1,272